Copyright Web Novel. Chapter 1, Transmigrated into Ben 10. The moon hung bright among the sparse stars. In the middle of a dense jungle, a young man lay on the muddy ground, surrounded by an eerie silence and absolute desolation. After an unknown stretch of time, his eyelids twitched before slowly opening. What greeted him were faint stars and a radiant moon. Clutching his head, he stood up, feeling as if it were splitting apart from pain. He scanned his surroundings, darkness everywhere. Towering trees stretched their jagged branches like demons from hell, waiting for prey to come close before delivering a fatal strike. Lucian scratched his head, completely bewildered. He had clearly been at home watching Ben 10, indulging in some childhood nostalgia, when suddenly everything went black. Now, this was what he woke up to. Wait, no way. Did he just transmigrate? Something this ridiculous was actually happening to him. And to make matters worse, this world's villains weren't exactly pushovers. Vilgax, Kevin, Dr. Onimo, Hex, 66, Blitzwolfer, Mummy, Ghostfreak, each one more twisted than the last. If Ben Tennyson didn't have the Omnitrix and plot armor, he'd have been dead a dozen times over. Just as Lucian was struggling to process all this, a thunderous ripping sound tore through the sky. Whoosh! A massive fireball, blazing with terrifying energy and scorching heat, plummeted from above like divine punishment, hurtling straight toward him. Lucian's eyes widened in horror. If that thing hit him head-on, there'd be nothing left, not even ashes. He bolted in the opposite direction without looking back. Boom! He had barely taken 2 steps before the blazing sphere slammed into the ground with an earth-shaking explosion. The impact gouged deep trenches in the soil before the fireball finally came to rest a short distance away. Lucian turned and stared. It was a metallic sphere, still smoking as waves of heat radiated from it, making the soil around it sizzle. Could this be the Omnitrix? The scene looked exactly like the moment Ben Tennyson found the strange watch in the original series. That thought sent a surge of excitement through him. Without hesitation, he dashed to the edge of the crater and jumped down, racing toward the sphere. The heat seared his feet, but it was bearable painful, yet not enough to stop him. Omnitrix! Lucian muttered, slowly approaching the metallic orb. He remembered all those childhood moments spent imagining himself wielding the Omnitrix, defeating monsters, saving the world, becoming a hero everyone admired. And now, that dream was within reach. Click! As he drew close, the sphere suddenly opened, releasing a soft green glow that bathed his face in light. Lucian's eyes reflected the green radiance as he extended his left hand toward the sphere's center. Then, as if alive, the Omnitrix inside opened on its own and latched onto his wrist. A cold sensation shot through him. Lucian froze, staring at the device in shock as his heartbeat quickened. It really is the Omnitrix, he whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. The strange patterns on its surface pulsed with a green glow. A small button sat on the side just like in the show, pressing it would bring up a holographic screen to select alien forms. The most powerful alien weapon in the universe had just chosen him as its wielder. Ding! Alien hacker system initializing. 1%, 99%. Binding complete. A series of cold, mechanical notifications echoed in Lucian's mind. Wait, was this a system? He had read enough novels to know what that meant. The system was the ultimate cheat for transmigrators everywhere. Now he had both the Omnitrix and a system, 2 cheats in one go. With these, even facing Vilgax wouldn't scare him anymore. Grinning, Lucian pressed the Omnitrix button. A familiar sound effect played as a screen projected upward. An alien silhouette appeared. It was Heat Blast. In the original, that was Ben's first transformation. Heat almost burned down an entire forest back then from lack of control. Lucian swiped through the options. More alien profiles appeared one after another: Wild Mutt, Diamond Head, Ripyaws, XLR8, Forearms, Upgrade, Grey Matter, Stinkfly, and Ghostfreak. Only 10. Lucian felt a pang of regret. The adult Ben Tennyson had amassed over 1,000,000 alien forms, able to switch between them at will, making him practically unbeatable. But now, Lucian only had 10. No Humungusaur, no Way Big, no Alien X. Still, he had the system. That alone was enough to tip the balance. With that thought, Lucian asked eagerly, "System, what functions do you have?" Ding. Complete system issued tasks to obtain rare rewards. Rare rewards? Lucian frowned slightly. Like what? Completing system tasks unlocks other alien form genes and various enhancement effects. Hearing the system's response, Lucian's eyes lit up. So he could acquire even more powerful alien forms? The thought alone made him imagine the day he could unlock Way Big's profile. But what exactly are these enhancement effects? Reply to host. Enhancement effects boost an alien form's combat capabilities such as increasing strength, defense, or extending transformation duration, potentially even making it unlimited. In the pitch-black expanse of space, a colossal warship hovered silently. Inside, an alien creature with tentacles around its mouth, its body resembling a mangled octopus, lay submerged in a healing solution. Its flesh was torn and bloodied, only half its body remaining. The Omnitrix, any news? Vilgax's deep, resonant voice rumbled through the chamber. Not yet. We found no trace of it aboard the enemy vessel. The robot before him trembled, its metallic limbs quivering in fear. Vilgax's fury erupted. Veins bulged on his forehead as he growled, "I was blown to pieces tracking the Omnitrix, and this is the answer you give me." He needed the Omnitrix to forge an army of alien soldiers under his command, a force powerful enough to help him conquer the universe. The robot's eyes flickered with unease as it lowered its head. "We suspect the Omnitrix was teleported to Earth. We've already dispatched personnel to search for it. Hurry! You must retrieve it." A dangerous glint flashed in Vilgax's eyes. Suppressing his excitement, Lucian turned toward the now empty metallic sphere. He knew this was when Vilgax would begin his pursuit of the Omnitrix. Soon, robotic scouts would be sent to track it down. In the original story, Ben Tennyson had struggled against one of those towering robots during his first transformation. He hadn't yet mastered the abilities of his alien forms. But Lucian was different. He was a lifelong Ben 10 fan. The 10 original heroes within the Omnitrix? He knew every one of them by heart. He understood each alien form's powers perfectly, though, of course, it would still take real combat experience to truly control the Omnitrix. As Lucian pondered his next move, a cheerful voice suddenly called out nearby. "Wow, that's so cool! Where'd you get that watch?" Ben Tennyson stood a few meters away, eyes wide with curiosity and excitement. Ben. Just like in the show, Ben Tennyson looked about 10 years old, with light brown hair and an insatiable fascination for anything new or strange. "You know my name?" Ben blinked, visibly surprised. Lucian opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, several sharp whistling sounds cut through the sky above. Chapter 2, Attack of the Robots. Whoosh! 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 Across the pitch-black sky, 5 or 6 small spider drones appeared, their bodies shaped like mechanical spiders. Their heads glowed with a red, pulsing light that flickered ominously. Target detected. Locking on. The spider drones' cold, emotionless voices echoed in the darkness. Without exception, every one of them locked onto the Omnitrix on Lucian's wrist. Engines flared, and they dove toward him at incredible speed. Seeing this, Ben Tennyson nearly jumped out of his skin, his legs shaking uncontrollably. "Ah! What kind of freaks are these?" he shouted, collapsing onto the cold ground. As an ordinary student, Ben had never encountered anything like this before. These robots looked straight out of an alien invasion, strange, menacing, and terrifying. Who knew what they were capable of? Lucian, however, remained calm. He had already anticipated that Vilgax would send machines to snatch the Omnitrix. Only this time, things were different from the original story. Back then, Vilgax had sent just one giant robot and 2 spider drones, certainly not this many. Looks like my appearance has thrown the plot off a bit, Lucian murmured. We need to run. They're coming. Ben yelled, panic etched across his face. Target located. Retrieve the Omnitrix. The spider drones hovered overhead, their black barrels extending and locking onto the 2 figures below. Perfect timing. Lucian pressed down on the Omnitrix, cycling quickly through its settings before slamming it down. A surge of eerie green light burst forth. ZZZZT. Several crimson lasers shot through the air like deadly serpents, tearing through space as they hurtled toward Lucian. Boom! Thunderous explosions shook the ground. The spot where Lucian had stood was engulfed by violent red light as dirt and debris blasted in every direction. Target eliminated, came the cold mechanical report. Boom! Suddenly, a massive pillar of fire erupted from the explosion, roaring skyward before breaking free from the encirclement. It landed near a large tree with tremendous force. As the blinding flames subsided, 2 figures emerged from within. One was small and slender. The other was wreathed entirely in roaring fire, like a blazing demon from the depths of hell. He stood at an average height, his skin glowing molten red and cracked like cooling lava. His hair was golden flame, flickering and dancing with intense heat. Ah! Ben staggered back in fear. You're another freak. The fiery figure looked far more intimidating than the robots. Ben, it's me, Lucian said, waving a flaming hand. You're that kid with the cool watch. Ben's eyes widened. That's right, Heat Blast nodded. And my name's Lucian. Whoa, that's awesome! Ben exclaimed, jumping up excitedly as he stepped closer to Heat Blast. How did you do that? Can you teach me? And since you're all covered in flames, I'll just call you Heat Blast. Just as Heat Blast was about to respond, several sharp whooshes tore through the air again. Persistent pests, he muttered. Guess I'll deal with you first. Heat Blast lifted his hand, a blazing ball of fire forming in his palm. He glanced back at Ben. Those robots are coming again. Stay safe. Ben's face went pale. He darted behind a large tree and crouched down to hide. Moments later, the spider drones reappeared in sight. Target acquired. Target acquired. All the spider drones flashed red lights atop their heads, locking onto the Omnitrix on Heat Blast's chest. ZZZZT. Countless crimson lasers, radiating scorching heat, surged toward Heat Blast with overwhelming force, aiming to obliterate him. Trivial tricks. Heat Blast snorted coldly, leaping nimbly to dodge the barrage. Then he raised both hands, launching several blazing fireballs into the air. Boom! 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 Explosions thundered across the field as the fireballs struck the spider drones, shattering them into countless fragments. The debris rained down, scattering across the ground and billowing thick black smoke into the air. Awesome! Ben Tennyson dashed out from behind a tree, eyes wide with excitement. You were incredible just now. Those freaks didn't even stand a chance against you. Really? Heat Blast glanced down at his palms. When he had fired those fireballs earlier, it had felt completely natural, as if it were an ability he'd been born with, as easy as eating or drinking. Of course, it still consumed a fair amount of energy. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, the Omnitrix on Heat Blast's chest began to flash, before bursting into a bright red glow. Lucian! Ben Tennyson blinked, staring in surprise at the handsome young man now standing before him. Lucian examined himself and realized he had reverted to his human form. Looks like the time's up. For now, the Omnitrix's transformation duration was limited. Unlike the adult Ben Tennyson, he couldn't seamlessly switch heroes or maintain transformations indefinitely. Still, according to the system prompt, it seemed possible to extend the transformation time in the future. After dealing with the spider drones, Ben led Lucian toward the rust bucket. Lucian didn't object. With Vilgax hunting for the Omnitrix, there were bound to be more robots lurking nearby, and since the watch was still cooling down, he had to stay cautious. After about 10 minutes, the two finally arrived at the camp. An elderly man with grey-streaked hair and a red floral shirt was busy tinkering inside the rust bucket. Despite his age, his build was still strong and sturdy, showing no signs of frailty. By the campfire, an orange-haired, green-eyed girl sat with her chin propped on her hand, eyes fixed on a laptop screen as she scrolled with the mouse, clearly engrossed in her research. "Gwen, Grandpa!" Ben called out as he jogged over, with Lucian following behind. "Doofus," Gwen muttered without even looking up. "Ah, Ben. Where'd you wander off to this time? Didn't get into any trouble, did you?" Grandpa Max chuckled, still facing away as he fiddled with something. Come on. Grandpa prepared some protein for you guys. Give it a try." Ben waved his hands frantically. "Grandpa, I still have cornflakes in my backpack. Give those to Gwen instead." Gwen, who had been focused on her computer, immediately frowned in irritation. "Your brain must have melted in the sun," she snapped, turning around angrily. But the next second, she froze. When had that incredibly handsome guy appeared beside her idiot cousin? Sword-like brows, bright eyes, and strikingly handsome features, his sharp, refined face looked like it had been carved from stone, impossible to ignore. His frame was tall and lean, yet exuded strength, nothing like the frail type. And the calm, mature air about him set him completely apart from anyone their age. Lucian waved politely, a gentle smile on his lips. "So handsome!" Gwen murmured, her cheeks heating up as a rosy blush spread across her face. "Swooning!" Ben muttered, rolling his eyes. Just then, Grandpa Max stepped out of the rust bucket, holding a large bowl filled with wriggling white worms, the mass twisting and squirming in clumps. "Here you go. Top quality, fresh, live rice worms. If that's not enough, I've got smoked lamb tongue in the car too. Ha, there's plenty to go around." Chapter 3, Distress Signal. Staring at the horrifying white worms writhing in the bowl, Ben and Gwen felt their scalps tingle with dread. They both instinctively backed away, hiding behind Lucian. Peeking out from behind him, Gwen stammered fearfully, "Grandpa, I still have chocolate bars in my car. Can I just skip this, please?" To her, eating those worms was worse than going back to school. It was downright terrifying. "Grandpa, I'm not eating them either." Ben quickly shook his head. Clang! A sharp metallic sound rang out as Grandpa Max's iron bowl, filled with worms, suddenly slipped from his hands and crashed onto the ground. The insects scattered in all directions, wriggling away as fast as they could. But Grandpa Max didn't react to the mess. Instead, his gaze locked onto Lucian, his expression filled with disbelief and faint sorrow. The usually composed old man's eyes turned red, a mist of tears beginning to form. "Grandpa?" Ben asked, confused. Grandpa Max had always loved eating these rice worms. They were rare delicacies. Yet now, even as they fled across the ground, he made no move to stop them. "Lucian, is that you?" Max's voice trembled as he spoke. His white hair shimmered faintly in the campfire light as he took slow, careful steps forward, extending a wrinkled hand toward Lucian's face. He feared this might be another dream. It had happened so many times before. Each time he tried to reach out, Lucian would vanish like a phantom, dissolving into the dreamscape. Lucian froze. A sudden wave of pain shot through his head, and he clutched his temples as a flood of memories came rushing back like a storm. In this world, he was Max Tennyson's grandson, the cousin of Ben and Gwen. 9 years ago, he and his parents had gone missing in a sea accident, lost somewhere in the vast ocean without a trace. His father had been from China, his mother from the West. Lucian was of mixed heritage, though his appearance leaned more toward Eastern features, handsome, calm, and quietly composed. "Child, are you all right?" Max hurried forward and steadied Lucian by the shoulders. When he felt the warmth of Lucian's skin, his eyes lit up with joy. "This time, this isn't an illusion. Lucian, you've really come back." Lucian took a deep breath and smiled softly, shaking his head. "I'm fine, Grandpa." Tears welled up in Max's eyes. This man, once a fearless plumber known for facing alien criminals across galaxies, now showed a rare, gentle side. "Child, I've been searching for you all these years," he said, voice trembling. "But there was never any trace. Where have you been? And what about your parents?" Lucian lowered his gaze, unable to answer. "I don't know. When I woke up, I was already in the forest." Max thought for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly. "Then it must have been a temporal disturbance. Since you've managed to return, I believe your parents will find their way back one day too." Lucian nodded quietly. "You two, come over here and greet your cousin," Max called with a smile, waving Ben and Gwen over. "Cousin," the two said at once, their eyes widening. Max nodded. "That's right. Lucian is your cousin. You were just too young to remember back then." He had considered telling them about their cousin before, but each time he'd stopped himself. There was no point in reopening old wounds that only brought sadness. "So Lucian is my cousin? That's awesome!" Ben exclaimed, eyes lighting up as he recalled Heatblast's fiery display earlier. With such a powerful big brother, who would dare to bully him now? "See cousin," Gwen stammered. She couldn't help but feel a pang of regret, such a handsome guy, and he turned out to be her cousin. What a shame! At that moment, Grandpa Max wrapped an arm around Lucian's shoulder and led him back into the rust bucket. "Lucian, after all these years, you haven't changed one bit. That's truly amazing." Grandpa opened the fridge, took out a bowl of lamb tongue, set it on the table in front of Lucian, and smiled warmly. "I believe that one day, Verdona will return to me too." Lucian nodded slightly, choosing not to say anything more. Verdona was Lucian's mother in this world, Max's daughter. She had disappeared years ago with Lucian's father, Karl, during a sea accident. To this day, there had been no word from them. The original Lucian had also been a victim of that same incident. For reasons unknown, years later, he had awakened in a forest with a different soul inhabiting his body. Coincidentally, both shared the same name, though they came from entirely different worlds. "Doofus, don't steal my chocolate bar!" Gwen's indignant voice called from outside the RV. "What I grab is mine!" Ben shot back immediately. The two bickered energetically outside, their lively voices echoing through the camp. They really did sound like a pair of born rivals. Grandpa Max shook his head with a helpless smile, then sat across from Lucian and pointed to the smoked lamb tongue on the table. "Eat up before it gets cold. It won't taste good otherwise." Lucian glanced at the dark, leathery strips and felt a chill run down his spine. He shook his head uneasily. "Grandpa, can I not eat this?" He'd seen people on TV shows eat all kinds of strange things, bugs, wild animals, and who knows what else, and they always made it look delicious. But actually putting something like that in his mouth? That was another matter entirely. "Just give it a try. You might end up liking it," Grandpa said with a chuckle. "All right, fine." Lucian picked up a piece of lamb tongue and took a tentative bite. To his surprise, it wasn't bad at all, far from disgusting, in fact. "See? Grandpa didn't lie to you," Max said with a satisfied grin, his eyes soft with affection. Just as Lucian was about to reply, the radio beside them crackled to life. "Help! Help! Somebody, please help us! I told you no one would believe me. There's a giant robot here, it's tearing this place apart. ZZZZT. The voice cut off abruptly, swallowed by a burst of static interference. A robot. Grandpa's expression darkened. He'd been so happy to have Lucian back, but trouble never seemed to wait. A moment later, Ben burst into the RV, panting slightly. Grandpa! There's thick smoke coming from the forest and explosions too. We have to check it out. All right, everyone in the car. Grandpa ordered, striding quickly to the driver's seat. Those robots sure are annoying. Hey, doofus cousin, got any ideas on how we can save them? Gwen said, hands on her hips. Ben smirked confidently, slinging an arm around Lucian's shoulder. With my cousin here, what problem can't we handle? Rumble. The rust bucket roared to life and shot forward like an arrow, speeding toward the explosion site at an incredible pace. Chapter 4, Diamond Head. Midnight. In a remote area on the outskirts, dense trees surrounded a campsite where many people were spending the night. The air had been calm and peaceful until an uninvited guest shattered that serenity, tearing through the darkness. A massive robot loomed in the distance, towering 6 or 7 stories high. Its 4 spider-like mechanical legs pierced the ground with every step, shaking the earth violently. Its scarlet eyes glowed menacingly as it scanned the panicked crowd for traces of the Omnitrix, firing searing lasers that obliterated everything in its way. Inside a car nearby, a forest ranger struggled frantically to escape, but the door was crushed out of shape, completely jammed. Tap, tap. The giant robot advanced slowly, red light gathering in its eyes as it locked onto the car, preparing to destroy it. I'm done for. The ranger's eyes widened in despair. SZZZ. A blinding crimson beam burst from the robot's eyes, blazing with deadly heat as it shot toward the car. The red glare filled the ranger's vision. He could already see himself being reduced to ashes. At that critical moment, a green figure leapt in front of the car. Its entire body was pale green and crystal clear, like a sculpture carved from gemstones. 4 sharp spikes jutted from its back, and it wore a black and white uniform marked with the Omnitrix symbol on its left chest. Diamond Head let out a low grunt, raised his right hand, and formed a solid green wall before him, an unbreakable barrier of crystal. Boom! A thunderous explosion rang out as the robot's laser slammed into the wall but couldn't even crack it. The machine ramped up its power, relentlessly blasting the barrier, desperate to break through. But the fierce laser beams only refracted off the crystal, scattering in all directions and tearing through trees and tents nearby. Seeing the attack deflected, Diamond Head turned, his yellow eyes flashing. With effortless strength, he tore open the twisted car door and pulled the ranger free. Thank you, the ranger stammered. Though terrified, he sensed no hostility from this green, stone-like alien. Otherwise, it wouldn't have saved him. This place is dangerous. Get everyone to safety and lead them away. With that, Diamond Head charged toward the robot, ready to finish the fight. Not far away, Grandpa Max watched the scene unfold, his face filled with shock. That's an alien. Why did Lucian turn into that? Sensing his grandfather's gaze, Ben grinned. My cousin's got this watch that lets him transform into awesome aliens. I thought he could only turn into Heat Blast, but this one's just as cool. A watch? Grandpa Max muttered, his expression turning grim. He had been too caught up in the excitement to notice Lucian's device earlier. If it really was the Omnitrix, that was no small matter. Cousin looks so cool. Gwen shouted, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The moment when Diamond had saved that man, it was straight out of a hero story. If only she had been the one rescued. Gwen, that's your cousin, Grandpa Max reminded. Her excitement deflated instantly. I know, Grandpa. She sighed. By then, Diamond Head had already rushed to face the towering machine. Target detected. Locking on. The robot's sensors fixed on the Omnitrix on Diamond Head's chest. At the same time, the view from its optics streamed to a distant spaceship where Vilgax was watching. Petrosapien, Vilgax rasped from within his regeneration tank. So, the Omnitrix has chosen its bearer. Retrieve it no matter the cost. ZZZZT. The colossal robot raised its claw, and from the circular cannon in its center, a powerful red laser erupted. Like a roaring azure dragon, it slammed down toward the diamond head below. Trivial trick. Diamond Head pivoted, effortlessly evading the strike. It then raised its arm, transforming into a dense forest of spiked protrusions that flashed with a cold green glint, aiming directly at the giant robot. Those razor-sharp crystal spikes unleashed a barrage-like machine gun fire, assaulting the robot from all angles. In a single exchange, the giant robot's body became covered in spikes, transforming it into a disheveled, hedgehog-like mess. Its eyes blazed with fury. Powerful legs propelled it skyward, where it spun at breakneck speed, transforming into a deadly steel wheel intent on crushing Diamond Head. "Doug!" Grandpa yelled. The crowd nearby was equally tense, hearts pounding in their throats. "Get out of the way, hero! That thing's huge. It'll kill someone if it crashes down. Stone Man, run! Don't clash with it head-on. No, handsome alien. I wanted your autograph later," a young girl wailed. But Lucian remained unmoved, standing still as he calmly watched the robot above him draw ever closer. Boom! A thunderous explosion echoed as the colossal robot's massive frame, accompanied by a violent gale, slammed down with brutal force. In an instant, it engulfed the Diamond Head, sending sand and stones flying everywhere while dust and debris filled the air. "Lucian!" Grandpa Max shouted, his heart pounding with anxiety. Ben and Gwen shared his worry, their eyes fixed intently on the robot's trajectory. "Cousin, please don't get hurt," Ben silently prayed. As for the others, they had already scattered in terror at the sight, their screams piercing the air. They believed the green alien had been killed, and without its aid, the giant robot would surely claim more lives. But in the next instant, an unexpected turn occurred. From beneath the giant robot's feet, a crystal mountain rose, its sharp spikes piercing straight through it and violently thrusting it into the air. The robot struggled fiercely, yet could not escape. Pierced through its torso by the green crystal, the giant robot's body began to spark with electricity. Numerous internal components and circuits were damaged, severely impairing its movement. Yet as long as its head remained intact, it wouldn't die. Soon, a green figure burst from the ground, standing before the crystal peak like a colossal war god. "It's Diamond Head. Cuz is okay." Ben jumped up in joy. Grandpa couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, his heart finally settling. He couldn't bear to lose Lucian again. The fleeing crowd, witnessing this spectacular scene, felt their spirits soar as hope reignited in their eyes. "Go for it, Diamond Buddy. Give that hateful monster a good thrashing. Oh my god, getting impaled like that must hurt like hell. Ha 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 ha, well done. Stone Man, I'll buy you drinks later. Kill that robot. Ding triggered alien hacker mission. Defeat the giant robot before you. Receive random enhancement effects." A series of mechanical prompts echoed within Diamond Head's mind. Diamond Head snorted coldly, raising his arm to transform into a sharp crystal spike aimed squarely at the robot's head. "Well then, I'll send you to the afterlife." Chapter 5, Crystal Enhancement. Whoosh! 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 Countless razor-sharp spikes, glinting with a pale green light, shot from Diamond Head's arms, tearing through the darkness like a violent storm as they struck the robot's head. A harsh metallic clang echoed through the air as the giant robot's head was riddled with countless green spikes, turning it into a honeycomb. Then, with a deafening explosion, it burst apart. Boom! In the next moment, the colossal robot's entire body shattered into fragments, scattering across the green mountains. Thick smoke rolled out as the wreckage rained down, covering the ground. No. On board the spaceship, Vilgax's projected image flickered and cut out, turning to static. Damned Earthlings! Vilgax roared, his tentacles twitching with fury. Omnitrix, I will reclaim you. Such a powerful alien weapon belongs only to me, Vilgax. Meanwhile, after taking down the giant robot, a notification sounded in Diamond Head's mind. Ding! Giant robot successfully eliminated. Gained enhancement, crystal hardness increased by 10%, control enhanced. Can now transform crystal into various weapons. As the mechanical voice faded, a brilliant white light burst from Diamond Head's towering body. His aura surged, his crystalline form becoming denser and more resilient. Lucian immediately felt his control over the crystal power strengthen. What once required focus to form a spike could now be done instantly. He clenched his hand mid-air, summoning a green longsword that gleamed with a sharp chill. With a flick of his wrist, it morphed into a powerful halberd. At that moment, the crowd of onlookers surged forward like a tidal wave. Holy crap, Diamond Head, you're incredible! That giant robot was no match for you. You're amazing, Diamond Bro. Come stay at my place tonight, my house is huge, a beautiful blonde girl said sweetly. No way, he should come to my house, a Chinese-American girl retorted. Back off. I'm drinking with Diamond Bro tonight, no one's stopping me. Amazing alien. Be my bodyguard, 10 million a month, a bald middle-aged businessman said earnestly. Within minutes, Diamond Head was surrounded. Several stunning women pressed close, trying to touch his crystalline body and win his attention. But Lucian, in this form, was entirely unresponsive, just a solid stone figure. Some fans even asked for his autograph. When they got it, they clutched it like a treasure and ran off in delight. This kid's really popular, Grandpa Max said with a pleased smile as he watched from a distance. Ben grinned wide. My cousin's so cool. Once summer ends, I'm getting him to help me teach those bullies a lesson. Don't touch my cousin. Gwen squeezed through the crowd, trying to pull away the overly enthusiastic girls, but there were too many, and she was quickly swallowed up by the mass of people. Beep, beep, beep. Just then, the Omnitrix on Diamond Head's chest flashed red. Transformation time was almost up. Realizing this, Lucian leapt high into the air, breaking free from the crowd. The girls tried to chase after him, but Diamond Head casually created a green wall to block their way, then leapt away in quick succession, disappearing into the dark forest. In the shadows, a flash of red light burst out, then vanished in an instant. Ugh, I almost lost my innocence just now. Lucian shook his head and sighed. The images of those stunningly beautiful women still lingered in his mind, hard to shake off. At that moment, the Omnitrix screen had turned red, indicating it was recharging. He wouldn't be able to transform again anytime soon. Before long, Lucian reunited with Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max. The four climbed back into the rust bucket and continued their journey. Lucian, you really shone today. That robot wasn't easy to deal with, but you took it down in just a few moves, Grandpa Max praised as he drove. No big deal, Lucian said with a casual wave and a grin. Cousin, are you hurt? Gwen asked worriedly. Although Diamond Head had defeated the robot, that mid-air strike had landed directly on Lucian. It looked painful enough just watching. It must have hurt even more to take it head-on. I'm fine. Diamond Head can regenerate and reassemble its body. That kind of injury's nothing, it heals in seconds, Lucian replied. Just then, Ben leaned closer. Cuz, I didn't know you could turn into other aliens. Can you transform into more kinds? It should be possible, Lucian said, pretending to think it over. We'll have to try it and see. Oh yeah. That's so cool. Cuz, can I borrow it? I wanna turn into an alien to beat up monsters and save the world. Ben said excitedly. It's possible, but I can't take the watch off, Lucian said helplessly. It was true, the Omnitrix, once bonded to a host, was nearly impossible to remove. Only advanced alien technology could separate it. Ben didn't believe it at first. He fiddled with the device repeatedly before finally admitting defeat. "Ben, don't mess with it," Grandpa Max said with a laugh. "You won't be able to take it off." Gwen blinked, curious. "Grandpa, do you know what this watch really is?"
No,"
Grandpa Max said awkwardly. "I just meant if Lucian can't take it off, there's no way you can either." "Ha. Lucian smiled but didn't comment. He already knew who Grandpa Max really was. "By the way, Lucian," Grandpa Max asked curiously, "where did you get that watch?" "In the forest where we were camping," Lucian said. "A metal sphere fell from the sky, and inside it was this strange watch. I just happened to be nearby." He recounted what had happened but, of course, left out anything about the system. After listening, Grandpa Max nodded slowly, deep in thought. The next day, in the city center, a residential area was engulfed in roaring flames. Screams and cries for help echoed all around as panicked crowds fled the blazing inferno, chaos spreading everywhere. Inside one of the burning apartment buildings, a mother and her child were trapped, trembling with fear and helplessness. "Mommy, are we going to die here?" the boy asked, clinging to her tightly. The woman held her child close. "No, sweetheart. Just hold on a little longer. Someone will come to save us." The fire spread rapidly, already licking at their feet. The entire room was consumed by flames, waves of heat distorting the air. Panicked, the mother lifted her child above her head, trying to protect him from the burning heat. But the fire had already climbed up her legs, mercilessly devouring her frail body. No matter how much the flames raged, she clenched her teeth and held her child high, shielding him from the inferno while enduring the searing pain herself. "Mommy," the little boy cried. "Mommy's okay." The woman gritted out, forcing a faint smile. Sizzle! A blue figure dashed along the wall, running effortlessly across it before bursting through the window. In one swift motion, it grabbed the mother and child and sped toward the nearby water park with astonishing speed. Chapter 6, XLR8. This individual was none other than XLR8. Resembling a velociraptor, his sleek black and blue body was built for speed. A black mask marked with a blue X shielded his face, designed to deflect the powerful airflow generated during his high-velocity sprints. Wheels on his feet and a long, flexible tail enabled him to move at incredible speeds up to 300 miles per hour, appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. In just a few seconds, XLR8 dashed into the pool with the mother and child, racing across the surface of the water. The splashing waves instantly extinguished the flames on their bodies. The entire rescue took less than 5 seconds. Without stopping, XLR8 became a blur of blue light, racing to a nearby hospital. He grabbed a doctor by the arm. "You! Save them, now!" XLR8 snapped, pulling back his mask. The doctor froze in terror, staring wide-eyed at the creature before him. What was this thing? It wasn't human, nor was it a ghost. It resembled a velociraptor, but more refined, clearly not of this world. Then he saw the injured mother and child. Though still shaken, the doctor's instincts kicked in. Saving lives came first. He stumbled to his feet and quickly gathered the medical staff to start treatment. After an urgent round of care, both the woman and her child were out of danger. When the doctor turned to thank the strange rescuer, he was gone, vanished completely, as if he had never been there. Meanwhile, XLR8 sped down the highway, weaving effortlessly between vehicles. His speed was so extreme that the naked eye could barely perceive him, leaving traffic entirely undisturbed. The fire hadn't been an accident, it was deliberate. A group of vicious robbers had just looted a nearby bank. To draw the police away, they had set that residential building ablaze. As the minutes passed, the fire grew uncontrollable. By the time the firefighters arrived, the damage would have been catastrophic. Fortunately, Lucian had arrived in time. Transforming into XLR8, he rescued everyone trapped inside and delivered them safely to the nearest hospital. Though Heat Blast could have contained the fire, he couldn't transport the victims as quickly. For this mission, XLR8 was the perfect choice. Whoosh! A streak of blue lightning cut through the wind as XLR8 caught up with the robber's van. He shattered the window with a swift kick and leapt inside. Bang! 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 With just a few precise blows, XLR8 subdued every criminal inside. He tied them together like a giant bundle and tossed them into the back seat, leaving only the driver conscious. Please, have mercy. Let us go, the driver pleaded, secretly reaching for something beneath the seat. Suddenly, the driver lunged up, veins bulging on his forehead as he screamed hysterically, "Die, you ugly monster!" He whipped out a pistol and fired point blank. Bang! A blinding flash erupted, the bullet ripping through the air with deadly force. XLR8 vanished in an instant, leaving behind only an afterimage before reappearing behind the driver. Game over. With a sharp strike to the neck, he knocked the man out cold. The driver slumped forward, unconscious, hanging limply in his seat. Moments later, the police arrived, surrounding the van and arresting the robbers. Prison awaited every one of them. Watching from the shadows, XLR8 gave a small nod before turning and racing toward the rust bucket. Back at the rust bucket, Grandpa Max quickly asked about Lucian's situation. After confirming that everything had gone smoothly, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't worried about Lucian's safety, he knew just how powerful those aliens were. What concerned him most were the ordinary people. That fire had been terrifying, still not completely extinguished even now. Fortunately, the fire department arrived in time, and the blaze was soon brought under control without further casualties. Before long, noon arrived. Under the scorching sun, waves of heat rolled off the pavement as Grandpa Max led Lucian and the others to a large supermarket to stock up on supplies. "All right, kids, Grandpa's off to buy some ingredients. Don't get into any trouble, especially you, Ben." With that, Grandpa Max headed toward the pet section. "Oh man, he's probably going to buy some weird thing again." Ben groaned, rubbing his forehead. Then his eyes lit up as he tugged on Lucian's arm and whispered excitedly, "Cuz, come with me to the snack aisle. Let's get some Sumo Slammers cereal. With your watch, we can totally score the rare Sumo Slammers gold card." Lucian smiled helplessly. Ben was just as mischievous as ever, just like in the original timeline. If things played out the same way, Ben would turn into grey matter, flip the shelves upside down, and get caught red-handed. But this time, Lucian had a better idea. "Hey, dweeb! Can't you think of something normal for once? Don't drag my cousin into trouble," Gwen complained. "Gwen, could you stop being such a nag?" Ben shot back, frustrated. "This is a Sumo Slammers gold card we're talking about. You don't just pass that up, it's super rare." Lucian waved it off calmly. "It's fine. I'll go with Ben. We'll be back soon." "All right then," Gwen said with a sigh of resignation. Soon after, Ben led Lucian to the aisle stacked with Sumo Slammers cereal. Rows upon rows of colorful boxes lined the shelves, each containing a random Sumo Slammers card. The golden edition was the rarest of them all, 1 in 10,000, practically a collector's holy grail. In the original story, Ben had been tricked by Kevin, who had powers of his own. The two had tried to steal a Sumo Slammers game cartridge, only to end up chased by the military helicopters and all. That alone proved just how valuable the series was. "Cuz, come on. I can't wait any longer," Ben said, bouncing with excitement. Lucian smirked, raising his watch as its green holographic interface flickered to life. He quickly scrolled through the hero options and slammed his palm down. A flash of eerie green light filled the air. Ben shielded his eyes, and when he opened them again Lucian was gone. "Cuz? Where are you?" Whoosh! A chilling gust of wind swept through the aisle. Ben shivered, goosebumps prickling his skin as if the air had suddenly dropped below freezing. It was the middle of summer, yet the cold bit straight to the bone. Hugging his shoulders, Ben glanced around nervously. "Cuz, where are you? Something's not right here." "I'm here." A sinister, rasping voice whispered from directly behind him. Chapter 7, Dr. Onimo. Ben froze for a moment before slowly turning his head. Instantly, his pupils shrank sharply. He let out a startled cry and stumbled backward, crashing onto the supermarket floor with a loud thud. What a terrifying ghost! Its body floated in midair, skin pale as death and riddled with dark cracks, the form nearly torn apart. On its ghastly face was a jagged fissure, and within it a single purple eye slowly shifted, its eerie gaze fixed unblinkingly on Ben, glowing with a strange light. Seeing Ben trembling on the floor, Ghostfreak raised a finger to where its mouth should have been. "Shhh, don't be afraid. It's me." "Who are you? Don't hurt me!" Ben cried, covering his eyes, unable to look directly at the ghostly figure. "Do you still want the golden sumo card?" Ghostfreak said in a low, haunting tone. Ben froze. Then he lifted his head, eyes wide with disbelief. "Cuz? Is that you?" "Who else would it be?" Ghostfreak rasped, his purple eye glinting faintly. Lucian didn't mean to sound like that, but this was Ghostfreak's natural voice, hoarse, echoing, and impossible to change. Even he felt uneasy in this form, as though another presence lurked deep within him, something waiting to wake. Knowing his transformation time was limited, Ghostfreak faded into mist, slipping into the shelves of Sumo Slammer's cereal to search for the bag containing the golden card. It was far more efficient than using grey matter, no need to tear open every package or make a mess. Ghostfreak, an ectonurite, was a ghost-like alien born of darkness capable of turning invisible or phasing through solid matter like vapor. Within moments, Ghostfreak found the bag with the Sumo Slammer's gold card and handed it to Ben. "Pay for it later," he said. Ben hugged the cereal box tightly, eyes sparkling with joy. "Oh yeah! This is awesome! Thanks, cuz! You're the best!" Ghostfreak chuckled twice, though the sound came out low and unsettling. Just then, Grandpa Max and Gwen walked over. "Ben, it's time to go," Grandpa said, smiling as he approached with a big jar of bugs in hand. Gwen carried a bag of clothes, her cheeks slightly flushed and her expression cheerful. "Grandpa," Ghostfreak waved. Grandpa froze, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly. "Lucian?" he asked carefully. "It's me," Ghostfreak nodded. Grandpa Max gave a wry smile and shook his head. His grandson's watch really was incredible, it could turn him into anything, even a ghost. "Grandpa, let's hurry back," Ben said eagerly, clutching the cereal box. He could barely contain his excitement, desperate to tear it open and see the golden card inside. Boom! Suddenly, the wall beside them exploded outward as a massive shadow crashed through, shaking the entire supermarket. Before them loomed a monstrous frog the size of a small hill. Its blood-red eyes gleamed menacingly, and its sickly green skin was covered in grotesque bumps. With every step, its powerful, muscular legs drove deep craters into the ground. "Come on, let's head to the electronics section." A white-haired man rode atop a massive, mutated frog, laughing maniacally. "Once I find the final component, I'll complete my dead cell reanimation project. Then I'll transform this entire city into a prehistoric metropolis. No one can stop me, Dr. Onimo." Whoosh! The other customers screamed and scattered in panic, fleeing like a disturbed colony of ants. Terror filled the air as they scrambled toward the exits. None of them had ever seen such a monstrous frog, it looked nothing like any creature from Earth. Moments later, 2 security guards rushed over, ready to deal with the commotion. But the instant they laid eyes on the giant frog, their courage melted away. Legs trembling, they froze in place, too terrified to move. Grandpa Max stepped protectively in front of Ben and Gwen, backing away as he frowned deeply. He hadn't expected a simple shopping trip to turn into this kind of nightmare. "Grandpa, take them and go. I'll handle this." Ghostfreak's voice echoed as his form blurred into a streak of shadow, gliding straight toward the giant frog. Seeing that staying would only put them in danger, Grandpa Max immediately turned to lead the others away. But Ben yanked free from his grasp and sprinted after Ghostfreak, eager to see his cousin in action. "Ben!" Grandpa shouted. But Ben didn't even glance back. He wasn't the least bit worried about his own safety, he just wanted to watch his cousin take down the monster. "Gwen, head back to the rust bucket." "I'll go get him," Grandpa said, wiping the sweat from his brow before taking a steadying breath and running back into the mall. "Oh my gosh, that clueless cousin!" Gwen groaned, shaking her head as she hurried after him. Thud! The mutated giant frog landed heavily near the electronics section, its massive tongue whipping out to snatch up piles of electronic components, swallowing them whole. "Ha ha ha ha! With this, I can resurrect the dead. Let's see who can stop me now!" Dr. Onimo shouted with unhinged laughter. "Resurrect the dead, hey? Sounds interesting." A chilling whisper brushed against Dr. Onimo's ear, sending a shiver racing down his spine. He spun around only to find no one there. In the next instant, Ghostfreak materialized in front of him, a pale spectral claw reaching for the DNA transmodulator strapped to his head. Destroying that device would instantly reverse the mutations, restoring the animals to their original forms. Ribbit! Startled, the massive frog kicked off the ground with tremendous force, leaping away and smashing through shelves, sending debris flying across the aisle. "Not bad." Ghostfreak's violet eyes gleamed as he fixed his eerie gaze on the creature. "Didn't think you'd be that quick, you big dumb frog. Guess I underestimated you. No matter what you are, you won't stop me." Dr. Onimo roared and activated the DNA transmodulator, pointing it toward the pet section nearby. ZZZZT. Several crimson beams burst forth, striking the small animals caged within. A white parrot caught in the light grew rapidly, its body expanding until it became a monstrous bird. With a screech, it took to the air, flapping its wings so violently that a gale tore through the store. A tiny yellow hamster swelled to the size of a bear, its once soft fur turning into sharp metallic spines. Its teeth gleamed white and razor-edged, glowing faintly with a cold light as it hissed menacingly, eyes burning red. It let out a shrill, blood-curdling scream, glaring straight at Ghostfreak. Another cage burst open, a green snake slithered out, its body now as thick as a barrel and stretching over 10 meters long. Scales glistened under the fluorescent lights as it flicked its tongue and stared coldly at the ghostly figure. All three mutated beasts locked onto Ghostfreak, ready to strike. Chapter 8, Battle with the Mutant Beasts. "This is going to be fun." Ghostfreak chuckled, his voice low and eerie. "Cuz, beat those monsters up and show them what you've got." Ben shouted from behind, cheering with excitement. Gwen and Grandpa came running over, both out of breath. Their arrival immediately drew Dr. Onimo's attention. A faint, sinister grin spread across his face. "Go! Kill those brats for me!" Dr. Onimo pointed toward the three behind Ghostfreak, issuing his command to the mutated beasts. Roar! Hiss! Chirp! The three mutated creatures went wild, their crimson eyes blazing as they charged forward all at once. "Much as I'd love to stay, I'm far too busy," Dr. Onimo laughed manically. "Just you wait, soon this city will return to the prehistoric age and become prehistoric Washington. And the Verities Award will finally be mine." With that, he spurred the mutated frog beneath him to leap away, quickly disappearing from sight. Ghostfreak was about to pursue, but a sudden scream from behind made him turn sharply. "Ah! You disgusting monsters, stay away from me!" Gwen shouted in panic, dodging frantically as the giant bird struck at her. Meanwhile, Ben and Grandpa were also being chased by the other mutated animals, their situation worsening by the second. "Clever old man," Ghostfreak muttered darkly, turning and rushing toward Gwen. Dr. Onimo knew Ghostfreak was troublesome to deal with, so he deliberately commanded the beasts to attack Ben and the others, forcing Ghostfreak to protect them instead of chasing him down. Crash! The mutated bird swung its massive claws, aiming straight for Gwen but missed, its talons raking across a metal shelf. Sparks flew as deep gouges tore through the steel. "I'll have you know, I'm a karate master." Gwen spun and kicked the creature right in the neck. But the attack only made the bird's enormous body tremble slightly. It screeched sharply and lunged forward, its beak stabbing toward her like a spear. "Ah!" Gwen gasped, her pupils shrinking in fear. At the last moment, a white blur flashed past. Ghostfreak appeared, grabbing Gwen and whisking her out of harm's way. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing safely beside the shelves. "Stay here, Gwen. Don't move." As his voice faded, Ghostfreak's form vanished again, melting into the air. Chirp! Chirp! The mutated bird thrashed wildly, its beak jammed deep into the floor. Unable to pull free, it clawed furiously, leaving long, ragged gashes across the tiles. "Need a hand?" Ghostfreak suddenly materialized behind it, his pale claws gleaming as he slashed down hard at the creature's neck. The giant bird let out a low screech, its body trembling before collapsing limply to the floor, unconscious. Truth be told, Ghostfreak hadn't evolved yet. His attack power was limited. His strength lay in stealth and unpredictability. Killing the bird outright would take too long, so knocking it out was the smarter choice. Once Dr. Onimo's DNA transmodulator was destroyed, everything would return to normal anyway. "I'll tie it up. Cuz, go help Grandpa and the others," Gwen called, running over with a thick nylon rope in hand. "Got it." Ghostfreak gestured an OK sign before vanishing once more, gliding toward Ben and Grandpa. Hiss! A massive green serpent chased furiously after Grandpa Max, knocking over rows of shelves as it went. The crashes echoed through the store. "You think I'm too old to handle you?" Grandpa grumbled, still running full speed. Without any equipment, he was little more than a strong ordinary man, no match for the creature. The mutated snake whipped its tail with terrifying force, smashing through an entire row of shelves and sending them flying ahead of Grandpa, blocking his path. "What a pain!" he muttered, forced to detour toward a narrow opening nearby. Hiss! The snake's slit pupils gleamed coldly as it lunged forward. But before it could strike, a ghostly shape solidified in front of it. Ghostfreak appeared from the shadows, his white claws flashing like lightning as he lunged forward, striking directly at the serpent's eyes. Hiss! The mutated giant serpent let out a crazed roar, its massive body thrashing violently. The searing pain in its eyes drove it into a frenzy. Ghostfreak seized the moment, his figure flickering above the snake's head. Clenching his fists, he slammed them down hard, knocking the creature out cold. Its enormous body went limp and crashed heavily to the floor. Just one left. As Ghostfreak was about to turn invisible again, the Omnitrix on his chest suddenly flashed red. With a dull thud, he reverted back to his human form. "Ugh, this stupid watch!" Lucian muttered helplessly, shaking his head. He quickly ran toward the last mutated creature, only to find the giant hamster pinned beneath a toppled shelf, unable to move. "How about that, cousin? Pretty awesome, hey?" Ben said proudly, standing on his skateboard with a grin. He had cleverly used his skateboard and the store's layout to lure the hamster in, then used its own charge to knock over several shelves, trapping it completely beneath the wreckage. "Nice work, Ben." Lucian patted him on the shoulder. Honestly, Lucian was impressed. For all his mischief, Ben was a sharp kid. Before long, the police arrived, tied up the 3 mutated beasts, and transported them back to the research facility. The supermarket, however, was a total disaster. Merchandise scattered everywhere, shelves crushed, and the once solid floor cracked and broken from the rampage. After a round of cleanup, Lucian and the others returned to the rust bucket. "Oh yeah! That was totally awesome!" Ben jumped up in excitement, holding the Sumo Slammer's gold card in his hands, admiring it like a precious treasure. Fortunately, before fighting the mutated hamster, he had hidden the cereal box under his clothes, so it hadn't been lost in the chaos. "Dweeb cousin, if it weren't for you, Lucian would have already caught Dr. Onimo," Gwen said, exasperated. Grandpa shook his head. "Our top priority now is finding Dr. Onimo and stopping whatever he's planning. But we don't have any clues. How are we supposed to find him?" Ben asked, puzzled. "He said he was going to build a prehistoric Washington," Lucian said calmly. "The answer's already clear." Gwen and Ben looked at each other, then shouted in unison, "The Prehistoric Museum!" Chapter 9, 4 Arms. The night was dark, and the cold wind bit through the air. The Prehistoric Museum stood eerily silent and empty. The hall was lined with towering skeletons of ancient beasts, mammoths, tyrannosaurs, megalodons, all massive and menacing, their bones glinting pale white under the dim lights. An old man wearing a black helmet stood beside the mammoth skeleton, twisting the knobs on the device again and again, as if conducting some strange experiment. Boom! A thunderous crash shattered the silence. The mutated giant frog guarding the entrance was hurled inside, slamming into the wall with a heavy thud. Dazed and cross-eyed, it slumped to the ground, barely conscious. Dr. Onimo's eyes went wide as he turned toward the entrance. What he saw made his blood run cold. A towering figure with 4 arms stepped through the doorway. 4 yellow eyes gleamed on his red, muscle-packed body, radiating raw power and primal menace like some prehistoric beast come back to life. He was walking straight toward him. That frog, had this thing thrown it in? Dr. Onimo's face twisted. First that ghostly creature at the supermarket, and now this 4-armed brute? Could this day get any worse? Meanwhile, Lucian felt his body surging with strength. Transformed into 4 arms, he felt like he could crush a boulder or even a bull with a single punch. Tossing that giant frog earlier had barely taken any effort. "What are you supposed to be, monster? How dare you interrupt my work?" Dr. Onimo snarled through gritted teeth, glaring fiercely at him. No one would stop his plan. "Enough talk. Let's fight." 4 arms stomped down hard, launching himself forward like a cannonball. In a blur of motion, he closed the distance, his massive hands reaching for the DNA transmodulator on Dr. Onimo's head. "Quick! Stop him!" Dr. Onimo shouted, stumbling backward. Croak! The giant frog shook off its dizziness, slammed its powerful legs into the ground, and charged. Crash! A massive force slammed into 4 arms' side, sending him flying into a wall. Cracks spidered out across the surface as the impact echoed through the hall. The frog lunged again, its jaws gaping wide, teeth glinting like knives as it bit down and tore at 4 arms, trying to rip him apart. But no matter how hard it bit, it couldn't pierce his skin. It was like trying to chew through solid steel. 4 arms let out a low laugh. He caught the frog's jaws with 2 of his hands, then used the other 2 to drive his elbows hard into its abdomen. Croak! The frog let out a strangled cry, flying backward like a kite with its string cut. It smashed into a saber-toothed tiger skeleton, scattering bones everywhere, then collapsed in a heap, motionless. Compared to Diamond Head, 4 arms was stronger and faster by far. That brutal strike had shattered the frog's bones, leaving it completely incapacitated. Stepping over its fallen body, 4 arms barreled forward again, charging straight for Dr. Onimo. But the doctor only laughed, his voice echoing through the museum. "No one can stop me, no one. He spun the knob on his DNA transmodulator and aimed it at the massive mammoth beside him. ZZZZT. A crimson beam shot out, striking the frozen carcass. In an instant, the mammoth's body began to stir. Its blood-red eyes snapped open, and it unleashed a thunderous roar that shook the entire hall. Its tusks gleamed coldly, and with a violent swing of its trunk, it smashed the floor, sending a booming shockwave through the room. Behold! This is my masterpiece, the Dead Cell Reanimation Project. A breakthrough capable of reviving the dead. Dr. Onimo shouted, laughing maniacally. Years of research all leading to this moment. This would finally win him the Verities Award. Twisting the device again, he turned its beam toward the other exhibits, awakening an ancient ape, a Spinosaurus, and a Tyrannosaurus rex in quick succession. Sorry, four-armed freak, he sneered, but I've got places to be. I'm taking back what's rightfully mine. He leapt onto the back of the revived T-Rex, which smashed through the museum's stone wall with an ear-splitting crash. Dust and rubble filled the air as Onimo disappeared into the night, leaving the Spinosaurus and ancient ape to face Four Arms. Boom! Four Arms swung his massive fist, slamming it straight into the mammoth's skull. The impact sent the beast reeling backward several steps. Enraged, the mammoth bellowed, charging forward with its tank-like body. The ground quaked beneath its feet. Its long, gleaming tusks thrust toward him like a pair of deadly spears, and even for someone as strong as Four Arms, a direct hit would be anything but pleasant. Clumsy brute! Four Arms vaulted high into the air, narrowly dodging the oncoming strike. He landed squarely on the mammoth's back, his massive foot slamming down hard. Roar! The mammoth bellowed in agony, thrashing wildly as it tried to shake him off. Four Arms gave a cold snort and leapt clear. Roar! Roar! The ancient ape and Spinosaurus charged forward, their bloodshot eyes locked fiercely onto him. The Spinosaurus towered nearly 2 stories high, its jaws lined with gleaming teeth, a rigid sail rising along its back. It exuded a suffocating aura of death. The ancient ape was covered in dense black fur, its muscles bulging with explosive strength. Its face twisted in fury as it beat its chest like a war drum, letting out a deafening roar. Come on then! Four Arms clenched his fists, unflinching in the face of the 2 massive beasts. Outside the museum, Ben and the others watched anxiously as Four Arms was surrounded, worry written all over their faces. With that many monsters, can our cousin really handle them? Ben stared at the battle without blinking. Ugh, if only I could do something to help him. Gwen gritted her teeth, wishing she had powers of her own enough to smash those creatures to dust. Grandpa Max's face was grim as he observed the chaos inside. That watch's power shouldn't be limited to this, he said slowly. A few mutated Earth creatures aren't enough to bring your cousin down. Grandpa, that sounds weird, Gwen said, raising an eyebrow. Earth creatures? You've seen aliens before or something? Yeah, Grandpa, what planet are you even from? Ben added with a smirk. I mean your cousin's strong. He'll handle it, no doubt, Grandpa said quickly, steering the topic away. All right, enough questions. Let's focus on him. Gwen and Ben exchanged a helpless glance and shrugged. Boom! The battle raged on, each blow landing with bone-crushing force. The 3 massive beasts attacked in unison, their combined assault shaking the ground like an earthquake. Four Arms roared, his muscles swelling as he unleashed a flurry of blows. His fists blurred, leaving streaks in the air as he battered the monsters back step by step. Panting heavily, he assessed his enemies, his mind racing to find a way to take them all down. Ding! Alien hacker mission triggered. Defeat the ancient ape to obtain a random alien DNA codex. Note: each newly acquired DNA can be used immediately without waiting for Omnitrix cooldown. Recharging will only be required afterward. A faint grin spread across Four Arms' face. Energy surged through his body, his fighting spirit igniting once again. Chapter 10, Omnitrix Evolution New Hero Unlocked. Roar. The Spinosaurus bared its jagged teeth and lunged at 4 arms, jaws wide, intent on ripping him to pieces. Noisy. 4 arms shifted aside with ease, then countered with a crushing punch straight to the creature's skull. Boom. The impact sent the Spinosaurus staggering backward, its massive head spinning from the blow. 4 arms' sheer strength was overwhelming, it nearly knocked the beast out cold. Your turn. 4 arms roared, his 4 legs pounding against the ground as he charged toward the ancient ape with explosive speed. If he could take down the ancient ape, he'd unlock a new alien form and reset the cooldown, meaning he could transform again immediately, without waiting for the Omnitrix to recharge. Moo. Just as 4 arms was about to reach his target, the massive mammoth beside them let out a thunderous bellow. Its colossal frame barreled forward, charging straight at him. Grabbing a massive fossil bone nearby, 4 arms swung it with tremendous force, smashing it squarely into the mammoth's skull. The bone exploded into countless fragments under the impact, scattering through the air like shrapnel. Then, seizing the mammoth's trunk, he planted his feet firmly like anchors in the ground. Using his body as a pivot, he spun, hurling the mammoth's enormous bulk around and whipping up a violent gust that rippled through the hall. "Cuz, that's amazing!" Gwen gasped in awe. The towering mammoth looked like nothing more than a toy in Lucian's hands. Cool. This alien's insane and he's got 4 arms. Let's call him 4 Arms. Ben shouted, eyes gleaming. Grandpa Max's expression softened into a proud smile. Told you he'd be fine. Those beasts could train for another 100 years and still wouldn't stand a chance against your cousin. Crash. 4 Arms released his grip, flinging the mammoth across the room. It smashed into the iron gate, bending the metal inward before collapsing to the ground with a heavy thud, too dazed to rise. Roar. The ancient ape bellowed furiously, swinging its massive fist toward him. Bring it on. 4 Arms caught the blow with 2 of his hands, then unleashed a blinding barrage with the other 2. His fists struck like thunder, slamming relentlessly into the ape's chest and abdomen. Each hit landed with devastating force, bones cracking beneath his blows. The ancient ape roared in agony, feeling as if its entire body were being torn apart. The sheer power behind those strikes was terrifying. Within moments, the beast was on the brink of collapse, blood spilling from its mouth. Desperate, it bared its fangs and lunged at 4 Arms' neck. But before it could bite, its pupils shrank in shock as searing pain erupted from its abdomen. It looked down in disbelief. 4 Arms' knee had driven deep into its gut, the force so immense that its insides churned violently, blood surging out of control. Ha! 4 Arms brought down his elbow like a hammer, striking the ape's back with a deafening crack that echoed through the hall. Whoosh! A shockwave burst outward. The ancient ape's bones shattered instantly. It coughed up a mouthful of blood, staining the floor red. Its massive eyes widened in disbelief, then slowly dimmed as its body went limp and collapsed to the ground, lifeless. 4 Arms exhaled sharply through his nose and tossed the corpse aside without a second glance. The so-called ancient ape had long been dead, buried millions of years ago in the prehistoric age. It was nothing more than a puppet, forced back to life by Dr. Onimo's gene reactivation ray. It wasn't truly alive, just an empty shell. What 4 Arms had done was simply let the ancient ape rest in peace, returning it to where it belonged. Ding! Congratulations, host, on defeating the ancient ape. Reward: Random Hero Gene Chest acquired. Stored in inventory. Can be accessed anytime. A sequence of mechanical notifications echoed in 4 Arms' mind. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, the Omnitrix on his arm flashed with blinding red light, then erupted violently, reverting him to his human form. Lucian lifted his wrist, staring at the Omnitrix's crimson screen. His eyes hardened. Open! Whoosh! The moment he spoke, the chest in his mind burst open, releasing a brilliant flare of light. Ding! Congratulations, host, on obtaining a new hero. Swamp Fire possesses abilities of fire projection, regeneration, shape-shifting, and flight. Can emit swamp gas that ignites into powerful explosions, and manipulate plants at will. Swamp Fire. Lucian froze. That was the powerful alien from Ben 10, Alien Force. He hadn't expected to unlock it so soon. Beep. The next second, the Omnitrix's red screen shifted to a deep blue. Ding! Omnitrix calibrating. Lucian immediately understood the Omnitrix was evolving, just like in the original series. But before he could fully process his excitement, a thunderous rumble echoed nearby. The Spinosaurus and the mammoth, their eyes burning crimson, radiated murderous fury. Their massive bodies blotted out the light as they charged toward him with earth-shaking force. Thud, thud. Each step made the floor quake. Cracks spread across the walls like spider webs, and dust rained from the ceiling. The Omnitrix, still in calibration mode, continued to glow blue. Come on, hurry up. Lucian gritted his teeth, retreating as he watched the two monsters close in. Outside the museum, the others caught sight of the danger. This isn't good. Lucian's in trouble, let's go help him. Grandpa Max reacted first. Ben's eyes hardened. He wasn't about to let his cousin face those things alone. He broke into a sprint toward the prehistoric beasts. Hey, ugly! I'm right here. Come and try your luck with Ben Tennyson. At the same time, Gwen and Grandpa ran in as well, shouting to draw the monster's attention. Roar! Moo! Instantly, the Spinosaurus and Mammoth turned, their rage redirected. With thunderous steps, they charged toward the trio, their killing intent so intense it seemed almost tangible. Run! Grandpa shouted, pulling Ben and Gwen toward the exit. The two ancient beasts, now in a berserk frenzy, smashed through the floor and stormed after them, leaving a trail of destruction through the museum. Lucian watched them go, his brow furrowing. He glanced down at the calibrating Omnitrix, clenched his jaw, and ran after them. Those two creatures were far too strong for Ben and the others to handle. Even conventional weapons wouldn't scratch them, let alone three unarmed people. Beep, beep, beep. As Lucian burst out of the museum, the Omnitrix emitted another sharp signal. He stopped and looked down. The blue light on the screen faded, replaced by a blinding emerald glow that grew stronger by the second. The brilliance was so intense it burned his eyes, forcing him to shut them as heat pulsed through his wrist. When the light finally subsided, the newly transformed Omnitrix came into view. Lucian raised his arm, excitement flashing in his eyes. This was the recalibrated Omnitrix. Its design was sleek and compact, smaller than the original prototype but even more stylish. The iconic Omnitrix emblem remained at its center, the unmistakable mark of the device. To adapt to Swamp Fire's DNA, the system had preemptively evolved the Omnitrix, enabling Lucian to summon the new Alien Force hero. Seeing the calibration complete, Lucian wasted no time. He pressed the side button, and the central panel sprang open. Each newly unlocked hero could be summoned instantly without a cooldown. The recharge would only apply afterward. The calibration process had been the only delay. The upgraded Omnitrix now projected 3D holograms instead of flat icons, displaying each alien form in vivid detail. 4 arms, ribjaws, grey matter. Lucian scrolled through them, finally stopping at a tall, slender figure wreathed in organic flame. You're up! He slammed his palm down on the dial, and a burst of green light exploded outward. Chapter 11, Swamp Fire vs Spinosaurus. Tall and lean, much larger than an ordinary person, his whole body was a vivid grass green. A crown of flame-shaped growths rose from his head, and his shoulders were studded with red, spike-like protrusions. His muscular arms were lined with sharp barbs, radiating deadly strength. The distinctive Omnitrix emblem sat on his chest, a feature of the Omnitrix Calibrated Edition, which placed the symbol at the same spot for every transformation. Because of that, some aliens found their abilities slightly hindered, as the emblem could block incoming attacks, but that was a matter for later. Swamp Fire. Lucian watched his own transformation with deep satisfaction. He pressed his palm downward, flames erupting fiercely from his hand. The burst of power propelled him like a cannonball, shooting through the air at tremendous speed toward the two ancient beasts. At that moment, the ancient Spinosaurus and Mammoth were rampaging through the city center, leaving ruin wherever they went. Screams, crashes, curses, and children's cries filled the air, blending into a single roar of chaos and fear. Dozens of police cars had already mobilized, officers firing heavy-caliber weapons at the two rampaging monsters. But even the strongest rounds couldn't pierce the mammoth's hide, only shallow white marks remained, doing almost nothing to stop them. Grandpa Max's hair was gray, his teeth clenched as he shielded the two behind him, anxiety twisting in his chest. After escaping the museum, they had planned to lure the beasts toward the outskirts, but the Spinosaurus and Mammoth went berserk, charging instead into the busiest part of the city, killing and destroying everything in sight. "Grandpa, what should we do?" Gwen asked, her face pale as she looked toward the terrifying creatures ahead. Grandpa Max shook his head with a weary sigh. At this point, there was nothing he could do. Without specialized weapons, he had no way to fight such monstrous beings. "Don't worry. My cousin's out there, he's gonna show those things who's boss," Ben said firmly. The moment he finished speaking, a roaring sound swept overhead. All three of them looked up in surprise, then their faces lit with relief. A grass-green alien streaked across the sky, fire bursting from his palms, cutting through the clouds like a blazing comet. He shot straight toward the two ancient beasts. Boom! A thunderous impact shook the ground as swamp fire landed, gouging a deep crater into the street. Dust and debris exploded outward in waves. Roar! The Spinosaurus was the first to notice him. With a deafening roar, it trampled over the rubble and charged forward, murderous intent pouring off its massive body. Swamp Fire sidestepped, swung a sandbag-sized fist, and smashed it hard into the Spinosaurus's skull. The blow only made the beast stagger slightly. Unlike forearms, he didn't rely on sheer brute force. But, strength wasn't Swamp Fire's specialty. Roar! The Spinosaurus's blood-red pupils narrowed as it bared its fangs and lunged, biting down on Swamp Fire's arm in a flash. Rib! In an instant, Swamp Fire's slender arm was torn clean off. The Spinosaurus flung it aside, sending it crashing into the ruins nearby, scattering debris in all directions. Roar! The Spinosaurus bellowed at Swamp Fire, as if declaring its dominance. This scene was witnessed by the gathered crowd. "Oh my god, that weird alien is done for. Yeah, its arm's been bitten off. I bet the dinosaurs will eat it soon. It's over. If even an alien can't defeat these monsters, our city is doomed. Who will save us?" Seeing the alien visitor with a severed arm, many onlookers felt despair and unease, already imagining the city's destruction. "Don't give up, alien. I believe you can defeat them," Ben shouted. Swamp Fire's lips curved upward slightly. He raised his left hand and snapped his fingers sharply. Tentacles sprouted from the severed stump, rapidly spreading out before connecting to Swamp Fire's wound. Under the stunned gazes of the crowd, Swamp Fire's arm regenerated before their eyes, the wound closing at an incredible speed. Within seconds, his arm was fully restored, not even a scar left behind. This was Swamp Fire possessing not only formidable fire-based powers but also rapid healing. Such a small injury meant nothing to him. "Alien, you're so awesome. Go beat up those monsters. Alien brother, you're so cool. You can even regrow your hand after it broke." A fair-skinned Western woman, face flushed, gazed at Swamp Fire with admiration. "Alien dude, you're our idol." The crowd erupted in excitement, cheering wildly with their fists raised high. Hope reignited in their hearts as they shouted for Swamp Fire. "Cousin is so awesome. And this new hero looks super strong too, Gwen couldn't help but say in awe. Of course. Who else's cousin is he? Ben stuck out his tongue. He's mine. Gwen retorted irritably. He's mine too. Ben argued back. No, my cousin belongs only to me. Grandpa Max stood nearby, shaking his head helplessly before turning his gaze toward the battlefield's center. Boom! Raising his palm, swamp fire gathered blazing flames that erupted outward. The scorching heat distorted the air as it slammed into the Spinosaurus. Crimson waves of fire, like a roaring dragon, devoured the creature's skin with furious intensity. Roar! The Spinosaurus shrieked in agony, its entire body burning. Instinctively, it stumbled backward, desperate to escape the fire's reach. With a swift motion, swamp fire swept his arms, conjuring a circular ring of fire that trapped the massive beast inside. He then released a surge of swamp gas, fueling the flames to burn even fiercer. Moo! A thunderous roar came from the side. Swamp fire turned to see a mammoth charging through the blaze. Its long trunk whipped the air as it trampled the ground, shaking the earth with every step, mountains of rubble collapsing under its weight. You again, you clumsy beast, Swamp Fire sneered, aiming his right palm toward the mammoth and releasing a thick burst of swamp gas. Then taste this move. The enraged mammoth, its eyes blood red, was soon engulfed by the spreading swamp gas. The stench filled the area, forcing the crowd to cover their noses and frown. Still, no one left. No one wanted to miss such a rare and spectacular monster battle. Once the mammoth was fully covered in swamp gas, Swamp Fire flicked a small flame onto its body. Then, with a sharp snap of his fingers, boom! Thunderous explosions erupted, blinding light shot into the sky, and the mammoth was swallowed by the violent blast. The ground shook endlessly as debris flew in every direction, as if a massive earthquake had struck. The crowd screamed, covering their ears and trembling, eyes filled with shock and terror. Such overwhelming power, could a creature like that truly exist? After a long while, the blinding flames faded, and the deafening explosions gradually subsided. Chapter 12, Savage Growth. Amidst the shattered ruins, a massive crater had been blasted open. Inside lay the colossal corpse of a mammoth, torn to pieces and charred beyond recognition, the air thick with the acrid smell of burnt flesh. Even the thick-skinned mammoth couldn't withstand Swamp Fire's ferocious assault. Roar! The Spinosaurus, eyes glowing blood red, burst out of the fiery ring and lunged straight at Swamp Fire. The mammoth's demise had filled it with dread. Rather than wait to be roasted alive inside the flames, it chose to fight back, desperation driving it to gamble everything for survival. Facing the oncoming beast, Swamp Fire released a thick surge of swamp gas that quickly spread across the nearby vines. SSSSSSS. In the next instant, the vines shot upward like plants growing at hyperspeed, stretching dozens of meters high before twisting together into a massive green hand. Before the Spinosaurus could react, the vines swarmed over it, wrapping its entire body into a huge bundle. No matter how violently it struggled, it couldn't move an inch. Ding triggered alien hacker mission. Kill the Spinosaurus. Random enhancement effect obtainable. Rest in the fire. Swamp Fire raised his hand and unleashed a torrent of crimson flames that swallowed the Spinosaurus whole. Already badly wounded, the creature couldn't break free from the tightening vines. Within moments, the raging fire reduced it to ashes, leaving behind only a blackened skeleton still radiating faint heat amid the ruins. The air went completely still. The crowd stood frozen, mouths hanging open, eyes fixed on the tall, lean figure standing in the smoke. After a long silence, someone finally shouted, "Hero! The fire-breathing hero saved us! Hero! Hero!" The others snapped out of their daze and joined in, raising their arms and cheering with all their might. Excitement and relief spread through the crowd like wildfire. Ding successfully defeated the raging Spinosaurus. Increased Omnitrix transformation duration, 2 minutes. Omnitrix initial transformation time, 10 minutes, now upgraded to 12 minutes. Note, the Omnitrix possesses a protective function. Certain specific reasons may cause the duration to extend or shorten. A sequence of system notifications echoed in Lucian's mind. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. Not a bad enhancement. At this rate, reaching unlimited transformation time didn't seem impossible. As Swampfire pondered the thought, the surrounding crowd surged forward like a tide, quickly surrounding him. Hero! Alien, you're so manly! Can I get your contact info? A green-eyed woman with dyed white hair called out. He should give it to me. I'm a famous model in Washington. Alien hottie, dinner's on me tonight, then we can get to know each other better. A tall blonde woman said, pushing out her chest proudly. No, all of you back off. Don't you dare defile our hero. He's our guardian deity, he doesn't have time for you. Exactly. You'll just slow down our alien big bro's fire breathing. Hey, alien bro. Drinks are on me tonight, we're not going home till we're wasted. Countless men scolded the women flirting with Swampfire, each one eager to befriend such a powerful alien and earn themselves an advantage. Ben and the others were squeezed tight within the crowd, unable to get anywhere near Swampfire. They could only watch helplessly as he was surrounded by admirers, their faces filled with exasperation. My cousin! Gwen shouted, but no one paid her any attention. Grandpa Max shook his head with a wry smile. That's your cousin's charm for you. Let's just wait for him outside. Oh, man! Ben groaned, rubbing his forehead. In the midst of the chaotic crowd, Swampfire shook his head. These people were completely out of control. Some wanted photos, others begged for autographs, and a few even tried to flirt. Even the faint stench of swamp gas coming from his body couldn't drive them away. Swatting aside a woman's wandering hand, Swampfire unleashed a burst of overwhelming energy, forcing everyone around him to step back. Then, placing both palms downward, he released a powerful jet of flame that propelled him into the air. Like a rocket taking off, he blasted free from the mob and sped away into the distance. Seeing this, Grandpa Max quickly started up the rust bucket and took off after him with Ben and Gwen in tow. At the Verities Award ceremony, a man in a suit stood proudly on stage, holding a magnificent golden trophy. Dr. Kelly, congratulations on winning this year's Verities Award, he announced, handing the trophy toward a middle-aged man. Before Dr. Kelly could accept it, the ground began to shake violently. At the same time, a dark shadow fell across the glass doors. The massive outline loomed larger by the second, with two crimson lights gleaming through the darkness, eyes belonging to some enormous creature. The crowd turned pale. Panic spread like wildfire as people screamed and fled in every direction. Crash! A monstrous Tyrannosaurus Rex, its blood-red eyes brimming with murderous intent, smashed through the glass doors and charged straight at Dr. Kelly. Ah! Dr. Kelly stumbled backward, trying to run, but another foot suddenly tripped him. The Verities Award flew from his hands. Dr. Onimo leaped from the T-Rex's back with astonishing speed, diving forward to grab the golden trophy. Thud! He hit the floor hard, landing flat on his back, but he clutched the award tightly to his chest. My Verities Award, he cried, holding it like treasure. Who are you? Dr. Kelly stammered, eyes wide with terror as he stared at the deranged scientist before him. I am the world's most brilliant genius, Dr. Onimo. Onimo declared, lifting the trophy high above his head. And this Verities Award belongs to me. No one deserves it more than I do. That's mine, Dr. Kelly said weakly, trembling. Dr. Onimo's eyes were bloodshot. He jabbed a finger at Kelly and shouted, Quick! Eat this babbling fool! At his command, the Tyrannosaurus let out a guttural growl and lunged forward. Dr. Kelly went pale as death. Somehow, fueled by raw terror, he scrambled to his feet and bolted. But the T-Rex was faster. Its jaws clamped down on his coat, lifting him high into the air before opening wide to swallow him whole. Ah! Kelly's scream tore through the air. Was this really how he would die? After finally earning the Verities Award, to be devoured by a dinosaur, it was too cruel, too absurd. He couldn't accept it. Whoosh! A streak of green shot across the hall. Flames flared from its palms as swamp fire moved faster than lightning, snatching Dr. Kelly out of the air just before the T-Rex's jaws could close. Roar! The dinosaur bit down on nothing and erupted in rage, its blood-red eyes blazing as it let out a deafening roar toward the intruder. Chapter 13, Mutant King Crab. No one can stop me from winning the Verities Award. Dr. Onimo snarled through clenched teeth, fists tightening with fury. Attack! Kill him! The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared skyward, its powerful legs pounding forward as it smashed through the desks blocking its path. With its jaws gaping wide, it lunged straight at Swamp Fire, fangs glinting with murderous intent. Bring it on! Swamp Fire raised his palm, unleashing a blazing fireball that shot forward with tremendous speed. The attack burned through the air, carrying scorching heat and destructive power as it slammed into the T-Rex's massive head. Boom! An explosion rang out. The impact ripped open the dinosaur's flesh, and the sharp scent of charred meat filled the air. But the T-Rex was clearly far stronger than the Spinosaurus or the mammoth. Enduring the agony tearing through its skull, it roared and charged again, ferocity radiating from its every step. What a stubborn beast! Swamp Fire grabbed Dr. Kelly by the arm and darted past the creature's bulk toward the exit. In a sealed environment like this, igniting swamp gas could cause a devastating explosion too dangerous for everyone inside. Quick! Chase it down! Devour that plant man! Dr. Onimo bellowed. The Tyrannosaurus slowly turned its enormous body. Its tail swept through the air, smashing desks and chairs to splinters. It roared furiously toward Swamp Fire at the door, then kicked off with its powerful hind legs and thundered after him. Outside, Swamp Fire set Dr. Kelly down. This place is too dangerous. Leave, now, Swamp Fire said, his tone calm but commanding. Dr. Kelly nodded, still stunned, and took off running. But halfway through, he stopped and glanced back, worry flashing in his eyes. That was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Could even an alien really defeat something like that? The thought lingered as he pulled out his phone and hurriedly called the police. Inside, Swamp Fire had already re-engaged the rampaging T-Rex. Roar! The monstrous beast swung its massive tail, tearing through the air like a wrecking ball. Swamp Fire dodged just in time as the strike smashed through the wall, scattering debris everywhere. With a powerful leap, Swamp Fire clenched his glowing green fist and slammed it down hard on the T-Rex's neck. The dinosaur howled in agony, its eyes bloodshot with rage. The pain drove it into a berserk frenzy, and it attacked relentlessly, snapping and clawing with unstoppable fury. At that moment, Ben and the others burst onto the scene. They froze at the sight of the brutal clash between Swamp Fire and the giant beast. Grandpa Max's sharp gaze swept across the room, landing on Dr. Onimo alone, sitting on the floor, clutching the Verities Award tightly to his chest. His bloodshot eyes gleamed with madness. The Verities Award, finally belongs to me, he shouted. Boom! Suddenly, the massive Tyrannosaurus was hurled backward by a fiery explosion from Swamp Fire. The beast slammed into the wall behind Dr. Onimo, crashing into rubble and fragments. Dr. Onimo snapped out of his daze, only to see three figures now standing before him. Not good. Grandpa Max reacted instantly, lunging forward to grab the DNA transmodulator from Onimo's head. Startled, Dr. Onimo stumbled back in panic. He glanced toward the wounded T-Rex, his mind racing, teeth clenched in frustration. There has to be a way to defeat that alien. His eyes darted across the hall, then locked onto something. A sly grin crept across his face. In the corner stood an ornate aquarium filled with vivid green aquatic plants. A bright red king crab sat inside, its sharp claws snapping as it tore pieces of the plants and stuffed them into its mouth. "You're the one," Dr. Onimo said with a sinister grin. "Don't even think about it." Grandpa Max immediately realized what Dr. Onimo was planning and lunged forward, reaching for the DNA transmodulator on his head. If another mutated creature joined the fight, things would become far more dangerous. "Just you wait, no one can stop me," Dr. Onimo shouted, turning the DNA transmodulator toward the king crab inside the fish tank. Whoosh! A blazing fireball shot across the air, carrying scorching heat as it hurtled straight toward him. Dr. Onimo barely had time to react. He dove aside, but the explosion's shockwave sent him tumbling backward, slamming him hard into the ground. Swamp Fire's attack left him covered in soot, his hair singed and messy. He was lucky to still be standing. Ignoring the pain, Dr. Onimo grit his teeth and slammed his hand against a button on his helmet. A beam of crimson light burst forth, the mutant ray striking the king crab dead center. Crackle! The red king crab began to swell like a balloon, its body rapidly expanding until it shattered the tank into a storm of glass shards. Its shell gleamed with razor-sharp barbs, and its 8 legs each as thick as a spear stabbed into the floor, sparking on impact and leaving deep pits in the tiles. A mutant king crab, massive, terrifying, and radiating an aura of pure menace, now stood before them, its presence as imposing as a heavily armored war machine. "Only I, Dr. Onimo, could create such a miracle." Dr. Onimo laughed maniacally, then pointed toward Swamp Fire. "Attack him!" The mutant crab screeched and charged forward. At that moment, a black rat scurried past Dr. Onimo's feet. Without a second thought, he zapped it with another beam, mutating it into a huge, hideous creature. Dr. Onimo leapt onto its back, towering over Grandpa Max and the others trying to approach. "Whoa!" Ben froze in shock. "Ew!" Gwen gagged, nearly throwing up at the sight of the grotesque giant rat. "Run!" Grandpa Max grabbed them both and bolted in the opposite direction. Against monsters like these, they stood no chance. Boom! Swamp Fire raised his palm and unleashed a volley of fireballs. They rained down like a fiery storm, hammering against the mutant crab. Clang! 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 The fireballs exploded on impact, but only tiny sparks flickered across the creature's shell before vanishing. The attacks left no visible damage. Swamp Fire's expression darkened. He had to admit Dr. Onimo's brilliance in genetic engineering was remarkable. If his mind hadn't been twisted by greed, he could have earned not only the Verities Award but perhaps even a Nobel Prize. Still, genius or not, this monster had to be stopped. Ordinary fireballs weren't enough. He needed to use explosive force, but with Ben and the others still inside, he couldn't risk detonating it here. He had to lure the creature outside first. Raising both hands above his head, Swamp Fire gathered his energy. A massive fireball formed between his palms, radiating intense heat before crashing down with a thunderous explosion. The blazing blast slammed into the mutant crab, forcing it to raise its blood-red claws in defense. The impact scorched its shell black, steam rising from the heat. By the time it steadied itself, Swamp Fire was already sprinting out of the hall. The mutant crab's eyes glowed red with fury as it roared and gave chase, its enormous legs tearing through the floor. "Fire breather, you won't escape me!" With a crazed grin, Dr. Onimo spurred his mutant rat forward and charged after him. Chapter 14, The Green Serpent. A pure white moon hung high in the pitch-black sky, casting soft streams of light over the city. Outside the hall, the mutated giant crab raged through the streets, swinging its massive claws with ferocious might. It smashed through anything in its way as it relentlessly pursued Swamp Fire. Terrified by the sudden appearance of the monstrous creature, pedestrians screamed and scattered in panic, desperate not to draw its attention. Along the road, the giant crab's brute strength tore through obstacles with ease. One careless snap of its claws was enough to shear a streetlight clean in two. Riding atop his mutated rat, Dr. Onimo gave chase. He surged past the armored vehicle-sized crab and sped forward, trying to block Swampfire's path. Two monstrous beasts rampaged through the city, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake. Swampfire glanced back, snorted coldly, and deliberately slowed his pace. Detonating swamp gas here would be foolish. The explosion would cause devastation far beyond that of the mutant creatures themselves. Leaping onto a power pole, he bounded between the lines and rooftops, occasionally flinging bursts of flame to taunt the beasts chasing him. Before long, Swampfire reached a deserted soccer field. It was late at night, and no one was around. Only the bright floodlights still illuminated the empty field. Roar! The mutated beast bared its sharp fangs, eyes burning with murderous intent as it glared at Swampfire standing at the center of the field. Moments later, the mutated giant crab thundered in after it, taking position beside the beast. With just one order from Dr. Onimo, both would charge to tear their prey apart. Tap, tap, tap. The Tyrannosaurus arrived next, its body covered in wounds, head blackened and scorched. Its powerful legs pounded the ground as it joined the others. Three mutated beasts now stood face to face with Swampfire. Dr. Onimo leapt down from his mutated rat, laughing hysterically. Pointing at Swampfire, he shouted, "All of you, attack! Tear that wretched creature apart! I'll take what's left of him for my experiments." The command had barely left his lips before the three beasts roared as one, charging forward with earth-shaking force. "Then I'll end all of you together," Swampfire said coolly. He thrust out both palms, releasing dense clouds of swamp gas that quickly enveloped the charging beasts. "What the hell is this?" Dr. Onimo shouted in disbelief. The very existence of this creature before him defied all logic. It wasn't something that could possibly exist on Earth. An alien, could it really be? Excitement surged through him. Dr. Onimo swore to himself that he would capture this alien, take it back to his lab, and study it in depth. But what happened next froze him in place. The three monsters, their bodies swallowed by thick swamp gas, didn't slow down. They continued to roar and rush forward, their killing intent undiminished. Swampfire stayed calm. Without even looking back, he flicked his wrist and launched a blazing fireball. Then, turning his back to them, he lifted his right hand and snapped his fingers. Boom! Thunderous explosions erupted, centered on the three beasts. A wave of blinding fire engulfed half the soccer field, rising like a blazing inferno. Dr. Onimo screamed in terror, scrambling to flee. But the blast caught him in its shockwave, hurling him across the field and slamming him to the ground in a heap. After a long moment, the roaring explosions died down, and the flames gradually faded. At the center of the scorched field lay the mutated rat and the Tyrannosaurus Rex, both torn apart, blood and bone scattered everywhere. Their lifeless bodies were nothing but charred remains. The mutated giant crab still clung to life, but its shell was shattered, its once impenetrable armor split open to reveal glistening, vulnerable flesh beneath. Swampfire raised his hand, firing one last searing blast of flame that reduced the crab to ashes. Then he turned toward Dr. Onimo, lying not far away. Beep, beep, beep. At that moment, the Omnitrix on Swampfire's chest began to flash. He lifted his hand, ready to finish Dr. Onimo off once and for all, but before he could strike, a surge of red light enveloped his body, and Swampfire reverted to his original form. Seriously, this crappy watch. Lucian sighed helplessly. At least all three mutated beasts had been dealt with. Just you wait. We'll see who the real winner is. Dr. Onimo staggered to his feet and made a break for the exit. He planned to activate more mutant creatures. But the next instant, something tightened around his waist. "Grandpa, I got him!" Ben shouted, clutching Dr. Onimo with all his strength. "Nice work, Ben!" Grandpa Max moved swiftly, lunging forward in a single stride and yanking the DNA transmodulator off Dr. Onimo's head. "No! Dr. Onemo's eyes went wide in horror. That device was his life's work. Crash! With a sharp crack, the DNA transmodulator hit the ground, shattering into fragments of blackened debris. Immediately, a ring of crimson energy pulsed outward from the wreckage, sweeping rapidly in all directions. All previously mutated creatures like the oversized hamster and the green snake were engulfed in the red wave and instantly reverted to normal, their genes stabilizing. My DNA transmodulator! Dr. Onemo cried, tears streaming down his face. Ben and Gwen exchanged a glance, then shrugged. Beep boop. Beep boop. Dozens of police cars screeched to a stop nearby, red and blue lights flashing across the night. Armed officers poured out, surrounding the area with weapons drawn, the tension palpable. They had tracked the chaos caused by the mutated creatures' unstable threats that posed a grave danger to society and had come to neutralize them once and for all. Freeze, the squad captain barked, raising his pistol. Grandpa Max lifted his hands calmly and gestured for Lucian and the others to do the same. Before long, Dr. Onemo was handcuffed and escorted to the waiting patrol cars. Prison awaited him. After a brief round of questioning, Grandpa led Lucian and the others back to the rust bucket. "Cuz, you were amazing today. You took down 3 monsters like it was nothing," Ben said, gesturing animatedly as he relived the fight. "Yeah, cousin, you were awesome, so manly," Gwen said, her eyes gleaming with admiration. Grandpa Max chuckled from behind the wheel. This time, Lucian's Bellwood's hero. Without him, no one could have stopped Dr. Onemo's plan. Lucian smiled faintly but didn't say a word. With the Omnitrix, dealing with someone like Dr. Onemo was hardly a challenge. Breaking news just in. The TV screen suddenly switched to footage of Swamp Fire battling the Spinosaurus. A news anchor narrated, "Recently, mysterious monsters have appeared in Bellwood, vicious, bloodthirsty, wreaking havoc and injuring countless civilians. But in humanity's darkest hour, an unknown hero rose to the occasion. Fearless and powerful, with swamp gas in one hand and fire in the other, he vanquished the monstrous threats and saved the city from destruction. We proudly call him the light of the city. Let us honor this incredible hero." The scene cut to interviews with eyewitnesses. "Were you there when the unknown hero fought the monsters?" the reporter asked, holding out a microphone. "I saw it," an excited young man exclaimed. "Our hero was unstoppable. With just a snap of his fingers, he blew that mammoth to bits. He's like a god." Another girl jumped in eagerly, "It's true. I saw it too. He even took down a Spinosaurus." "I'd love to meet that hero," a young woman added, her eyes full of admiration. Turning off the TV, Ben grinned at Lucian. "Cuz, you're famous now. Tons of girls want to meet you." "Of course they do. Look how amazing our cousin is," Gwen said, pouting playfully. "Yeah, Lucian," Grandpa Max teased with a rare mischievous smile. "You're an adult now. Thinking about getting a girlfriend?" "Me?" Lucian shook his head. "Not right now. He didn't have the time or the luxury for that." If the original storyline was anything to go by, countless dangers still lay ahead. Lucian had to move fast, collect more alien DNA, and keep growing stronger. Only then could he survive in this world. "All right, kids," Grandpa Max said with a grin. "To celebrate this victory, tomorrow morning we're going fishing. Time to enjoy the lake." "Oh yeah! Awesome!" Ben cheered, pumping his fists. Lucian rested his chin in his hand, lost in thought. It had been ages since he'd watched Ben 10, and much of the original plot was blurry. He could only vaguely remember a few major villains. But, he was sure there was some kind of monster in that lake. He couldn't recall its name, but one thing was certain: better safe than sorry. Hiss! Suddenly, a sharp sting shot through his arm. Lucian rolled up his sleeve and froze. A faint green pattern slithered beneath his skin, twisting like a living snake across his forearm. He rubbed his eyes, but the snake faded away, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. As if it had never existed at all. Was that an illusion? Lucian muttered under his breath. Chapter 15, The Kraken. Early the next morning. The rust bucket was parked deep within a shadowy forest. Not far away stretched a vast lake, its surface rippling gently under the passing breeze. A dim sky loomed overhead as several crows glided past, their hoarse cries echoing through the stillness. At the lake shore stood a girl with orange hair and green eyes, gazing worriedly at the dark waters. "Ben, you'd better come out now. Who knows what kind of creepy things are lurking in that lake?" Gurgle. Bubbles rose from beneath the surface before a small head popped up. "Relax, Gwen. There's nothing down here. Come on in, it's awesome." Ben laughed, brushing wet hair from his face. "Once my cousin wakes up, we'll get him to join us too." Inside the rust bucket, Lucian and Grandpa Max were still sound asleep. "Ben, get out of the water. Or I'll tell Grandpa." Gwen stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at him. "No way!" Ben's words suddenly cut off as his body jerked. He froze, eyes widening in panic as he looked down at the water below him. "Ben? What's wrong?" Gwen asked, confused. Before she could get an answer, Ben was yanked violently downward, vanishing beneath the surface as if something had dragged him under. "Ben!" Gwen cried out in alarm. Gurgle, gurgle. Dark bubbles rose as a large, shadowy shape emerged beneath the surface, sending ripples across the water. "Ha!" Ben suddenly burst up from the lake, his head wrapped in seaweed, waving his arms and snarling dramatically to scare her. Gwen flinched, then gave him a flat stare. "Ben, that wasn't funny." Her idiot cousin had made her worry for nothing. Ben burst out laughing, clutching his stomach. Scaring his dweeb cousin was even better than pulling a rare sumo slammer's card. Splash! Without warning, a powerful wave erupted across the lake. The surface swelled upward as dark currents churned beneath. A deep rushing sound echoed from behind. Ben froze, then turned, and his face went pale. From the middle of the lake, a massive tentacle was rising, surging toward him like a towering column connecting sky and earth. "Whoa!" Ben thrashed wildly, pushing off with both arms and kicking frantically for the shore. But the current was too strong. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't get closer. Instead, the undertow dragged him backward, straight toward the monstrous appendage. "Gwen," he shouted, coughing as water splashed into his mouth. "This isn't funny, Ben. I'm not falling for that again." Gwen snapped without looking back. "It's real this time. There's a monster in the lake." Ben gasped, trying desperately to stay afloat. Gwen rolled her eyes and started walking toward the rust bucket. "No, I'm serious. Help me." Ben's voice cracked in terror. That stopped her cold. Ben was stubborn. He never admitted defeat. For him to sound that scared, something was really wrong. Gwen turned around and her pupils shrank in horror. A gigantic, terrifying creature was rising from the lake, towering high above the surface. Two enormous tentacles coiled beside its mouth, and rows of yellowed, jagged teeth spun like a living meat grinder, devouring everything in its path. The monster was even larger than a Tyrannosaurus, a true behemoth of the deep. "Gwen! Go get Cuz! Only he can stop this thing." Ben fought to stay above the waves, but the raging current dragged him closer and closer to the creature's gaping jaws. "Hold on, Ben!" Gwen shouted, then turned and sprinted toward the rust bucket. It was about 50 meters away, and she ran as fast as she could, tripping, stumbling, but never stopping until she reached it. "Cousin, wake up! Ben is in danger!" Gwen clutched Lucian's shoulders, shaking him frantically. Lucian had still been half asleep, but the moment he heard those words, his eyes snapped open, all traces of drowsiness gone. "Where is he?" His gaze sharpened instantly. "He's in the lake." There's a huge lake monster there. Gwen's face was tight with panic. If they didn't act fast, Ben would be devoured by that terrifying creature. At the words lake monster, Lucian's brow furrowed. So, this lake really did have one. If he'd been awake, he never would have let Ben near the water. The monster from the original story was massive, formidable and dangerous. Who would have thought Ben would sneak out for a swim while he and Grandpa were asleep? Reckless as ever. Forget monsters, most people wouldn't dare swim in a lake that deep. But now wasn't the time to complain. Lucian pressed the Omnitrix on his wrist, and a holographic projection of alien silhouettes appeared before him. 4 arms. Diamond head. Grey matter. Wild mutt. XLR8. You're up. For rescue missions, no one was faster. His combat ability might be average, but his speed made him invaluable. Boom! A flash of green light burst through the air as Lucian transformed into XLR8. The X-shaped visor slid into place, and in the next instant, he shot out of the rust bucket like an arrow loosed from its bow. The lake was barely 50 meters away, a mere blink of an eye for XLR8. In the water, a massive whirlpool churned violently. It sucked in huge volumes of water, along with seaweed and bits of driftwood, shredding everything caught in its pull. A small figure thrashed near the vortex, struggling desperately to resist the pull, but it was useless. The current only dragged him closer to the center. And then, the lake monster noticed him. Its gaping maw split open, reeking of decay. Jagged fangs, gleaming like steel, lined its mouth as it lunged forward to swallow Ben whole. I'm done for. Ben's face went pale, despair flooding his eyes. He was a model student, never picked fights, never caused trouble, always friendly, always trying to do good. And now, he was about to die in the jaws of a lake monster. The enormous shadow swallowed the light, casting everything around him into cold darkness. All warmth vanished, replaced by helpless dread. Roar! The water monster's huge, copper bell eyes gleamed with fury. Its monstrous presence filled the air as it lunged down toward Ben. Whoosh! At the last second, a streak of blue lightning slashed across the lake. Water exploded into waves as XLR8 shot through, scooping Ben up and darting toward shore with blinding speed. Roar! Having missed its prey, the monster bellowed in rage. It slammed its colossal tentacles into the lake, sending wave after wave crashing outward. Sheets of water rained down from above like a torrential storm. XLR8 skidded to a stop on the shore, gently setting Ben down. "See, cuz. You finally came." Ben gasped, dripping wet as he threw his arms around XLR8. "Thank goodness you showed up. I was almost lunch for that thing." XLR8 flicked Ben's forehead and rasped, "You idiot. Swimming this early instead of sleeping, are you trying to die? If Gwen hadn't warned me, you'd be fish food by now." "I was wrong, cuz." Ben hung his head, looking like a scolded child. "Ben!" Grandpa Max's voice called from behind. He rushed over, face lined with worry. "Ben, Lucian, Gwen said there's a giant monster in the lake. Are you both all right?" Grandpa Max, his grey hair catching the light, looked them over anxiously. "Grandpa, that thing in the lake, it was huge." "It almost," Ben began, but XLR8 cut him off. "Enough," XLR8 said sharply, turning toward the lake. "Get back to the rust bucket. The monster's coming up." Chapter 16, Battle with the Lake Monster. By the lake shore, the giant water monster glared with blood-red eyes, like a wounded beast consumed by rage. It stomped forward on its massive limbs, charging straight toward the shore. Its gaze burned with killing intent, its fanged jaws clenched in hatred. It despised humanity itself. Each time its sharp claws struck the ground, they carved deep scars into the earth. XLR8 turned his head. "Grandpa, take Ben and Gwen and get out of here. Drive the rust bucket as far away as you can." Grandpa Max nodded immediately. He knew he'd only slow Lucian down if he stayed. All right, but be careful. That thing doesn't look easy to handle. Without another word, he grabbed Ben and Gwen, hauling them into the rust bucket before speeding off. As the vehicle disappeared into the distance, XLR8 pulled down his visor. The wheels on his feet spun rapidly, and with a sharp whoosh, he shot forward like a blue streak. On land, the monster's movements were sluggish, but instead of retreating back into the lake, it continued its rampage, thrashing about wildly. Lucian remembered there was a small village not far from here, a quiet, peaceful place. If the monster made it there, the consequences would be disastrous. Ding triggered alien hacker mission. The enraged lake monster is about to reach the village, rampaging and slaughtering indiscriminately. Countless lives will be lost. Stop the lake monster before it reaches the village and drive it back into the lake. Mission completion reward, random enhancement. In a flash, Lucian charged toward the creature, looking up at the towering mass before him. Its mouth was lined with rows of jagged yellow teeth. Its body was as solid as steel, massive beyond belief. Two huge tentacles writhed beside it like chains of death, strong enough to snap a tree trunk in an instant. The pressure radiating from it was suffocating, an instinctive terror that only those facing it could truly feel. Roar! The lake monster lashed out with one of its tentacles, smashing it down toward XLR8. Too slow. XLR8 blurred into motion, dodging the brutal strike with ease. To him, the attack moved in slow motion like a film played at a crawl, unable even to graze a hair on him. Crash! The tentacle slammed into the ground, shaking the earth. Dirt and debris flew everywhere as the forest shuddered violently, branches and leaves raining down. Lucian let out a cold snort and vanished into another blur of blue light. Racing up along the creature's massive leg, he sprinted all the way to its head. Thud! 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 XLR8 unleashed a barrage of lightning-fast kicks, pounding the monster's skull. The rapid strikes made it bellow in agony. Roaring in pain, the beast staggered backward, then swung both tentacles up, slamming them toward its attacker in a simultaneous strike, trying to crush XLR8 into paste. Whoosh! Moving like a gust of wind, XLR8 dodged, leaping off the monster's body just as the tentacles crashed down where he'd been. Roar! The monster's furious bellow shook the air. Get back! XLR8 raised his claws, voice low and sharp. Take one more step, and I won't hold back. He couldn't let the creature advance no matter what. It wasn't just the nearby village at risk. If Grandpa's rust bucket broke down somewhere along the road and the monster caught up, the thought alone was unacceptable. Roar! The creature lifted its massive claws again, its killing intent surging as it brought them crashing down where XLR8 stood. But in the next instant, he was gone, reappearing on the other side in a blur of blue light. Stubborn as a mule, Lucian darted under the lake monster's belly, his claws striking in a relentless barrage like a raging storm, each blow landing with a thunderous crack. The monster let out an ear-piercing shriek, slamming its claws together before pounding them hard against the ground, forcing XLR8 to retreat. Then, twisting its enormous body, it began crawling back toward the deep blue lake. It knew it couldn't defeat XLR8. Staying any longer would only mean taking more punishment, and its real target was the humans. The ground behind it was torn open, leaving a deep trench carved into the wet, black soil, glistening with murky lake water. Watching the creature's retreating form, XLR8 shook his head slightly. Such rage couldn't come from nowhere. Something had driven this monster into madness. Still, that mystery would have to wait. For now, he needed to regroup with Ben and the others before anything else went wrong. Ding successfully prevented the lake monster from destroying the village. Enhanced XLR8's speed by 5%. Whoosh! A flash of white light surrounded him. XLR8 suddenly felt lighter, his body more agile, his reflexes sharper and his vision clearer than before. Even so, Lucian couldn't help but hope for something more. An alien gene scan, maybe, to unlock a stronger form. Heroes like Way Big, Humongousaur, or Big Chill would be incredible additions. But for now, finding Ben and the others came first. Some things couldn't be rushed. With that, XLR8 pivoted on his heels, skates flaring to life, and shot toward the direction of the rust bucket. The wind howled past his ears as the landscape blurred into streaks of color. In no time, he spotted them. Grandpa Max had parked the rust bucket by the edge of the village. Standing nearby, Ben and Gwen were anxiously staring into the distance. "Grandpa, do you think my cousin's okay?" Gwen's face was pale. She'd seen the monster herself, and it looked like something out of a nightmare. Grandpa shook his head, his tone steady but his eyes filled with worry. "Don't worry. Your cousin's strong. He'll make it back just fine." Even as he spoke, though, the concern in his heart refused to settle. He wanted nothing more than to know how Lucian was faring. "Relax." Ben grinned, patting Gwen's shoulder. "We're talking about XLR8 here. He's lightning fast. Taking down some slow, oversized lake monster should be easy." "But..." Gwen hesitated. "But what?" came a familiar voice from behind. Gwen froze, then turned, her face lighting up with joy. "Cousin!" she cried, running forward and throwing her arms around Lucian. Lucian, now nearly 6 feet tall, barely moved as she clung to him, her head only reaching his chest. "I'm so glad you're okay," Gwen said, wiping at her eyes. Lucian smiled faintly. "You think something like that could take me down? Don't worry, I've got more than enough tricks up my sleeve." Ben and Grandpa exchanged a look and smiled warmly. In that moment, Lucian felt it, the warmth of family, spreading through him like a quiet fire. "All right, Gwen," Grandpa chuckled, "let your cousin go. We need to head into the village and alert the local guards about the lake monster. Yet, before anyone else gets eaten." Ben added quickly, still shivering at the memory of the creature's gaping jaws. "But, do you think anyone will believe us?" Lucian asked calmly. "We have to try," Grandpa sighed. And honestly, if someone had come to him claiming there was a man-eating monster in the lake, he probably wouldn't have believed it either. After regrouping, they went straight to the local defense bureau to report the incident and warn them to prepare. But, as Lucian expected, things didn't go well. The officers laughed at them, mocked their story, and eventually kicked them out into the street. A cold gust swept past. Ben shivered, crossing his arms tightly. "Oh, come on. Those guys are the worst. Why won't they just believe us?" he complained angrily. "Forget it. We've done all we can," Lucian said, shaking his head. "Grandpa, let's just leave this place." They had gone out of their way to warn the authorities, only to be ridiculed for it. There was nothing more they could do. Lucian wasn't the type to waste kindness on people who didn't want it. Grandpa frowned deeply, lost in thought. His instincts wouldn't let him walk away from the situation so easily. If that monster wasn't dealt with, it would only bring more trouble later. Lucian sighed, already guessing what was on his mind. "I knew it." Grandpa wasn't leaving until the lake monster problem was solved. Just then, Grandpa's gaze shifted. Not far off, a small fishing boat floated on the lake, a lone figure standing on its deck. His eyes lit up. "Let's go fishing. Maybe we can ask the locals about the monster, see if they know anything useful." Ding triggered alien hacker mission. Investigate the cause of the lake monster's rampage and eliminate the source to restore it to a peaceful state. Mission reward, Grimoire of Water Magic *1. Grimoire of Water Magic. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly. That hadn't been in the original story, but judging by the name, it was clearly something magical. Magic wasn't really his thing. The Omnitrix was more than enough for him. But, if he didn't use it, someone else could. A faint smile tugged at Lucian's lips as he glanced toward Gwen, who was still looking at him with a completely bewildered expression. Chapter 17, Chapter 17, Friends of Fish. By the lake shore, a small, weathered fishing boat was tied to a wooden post. A middle-aged man stood aboard, hunched over as he busied himself with something unknown. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Shaw?" Grandpa Max called out as he approached the shore, looking toward the man on the boat. "What do you want?" The man turned his head. His expression was cold, his eyes dull and lifeless like a dead fish. He gave off an aura that warned strangers to stay away. "We have a fishing reservation," Grandpa Max said with a polite smile, though his real intentions were elsewhere. "The weather's beautiful today, so I thought I'd bring my grandkids along to enjoy the scenery around the village." "Get on," Captain Shaw said flatly, his tone so indifferent it sounded as if someone owed him money. Soon, Lucian and the others boarded the fishing boat and began their journey out onto the lake. The day was bright and clear, sunlight dancing across the water. The blue sky mirrored perfectly on the lake's surface, making it seem as though heaven and earth were connected in peaceful harmony. Thick, green forests lined both sides of the shore, vibrant with life. Birds chirped in the branches, butterflies fluttered in pairs, dancing through the air. Everything looked calm, too calm. Ben stood near the edge of the deck, glancing around nervously. "Grandpa, maybe we should head back. What if that monster shows up again?" He still hadn't shaken off the fear from earlier. After barely escaping the jaws of the lake monster, he couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if Lucian hadn't shown up in time. "Dweeb," Gwen said, folding her arms and shooting him a look. "Grandpa already said we're not leaving until we figure out what's going on with that thing. Not everyone's a scaredy cat like you." "Who are you calling a scaredy cat?" "You, obviously." The two glared at each other, teeth clenched, sparks practically flying as they squared off. Captain Shaw gripped the wheel and gave Ben a sidelong glance. Grandpa Max laughed awkwardly. "Hat, my grandkids can be a little lively sometimes, Mr. Shaw. Please don't mind them." "It's called the Kraken," Captain Shaw said in the same even tone, his eyes fixed ahead. "People have seen it for hundreds of years, but no one ever believed them. I've been tracking it for a long time." Grandpa Max's brows lifted slightly. So, the man knew the monster was real. In that case, there was no need to pretend anymore. "Mr. Shaw," Grandpa Max said, "if you know a monster like that exists, why would you still bring us out to fish?" Captain Shaw snorted, his dull eyes suddenly flashing with a dangerous gleam. "Why wouldn't I? I'm the greatest monster expert alive. Only I can catch the Kraken." Lucian tugged Grandpa aside and shook his head. This Captain Shaw was clearly obsessed, completely consumed by the idea of capturing the monster. Trying to take it on alone? He wouldn't even make a decent snack for it. But Lucian didn't argue. He simply stayed quiet, observing the surface of the lake. Now wasn't the time to fight the monster. He needed to figure out what had caused its rampage and resolve the issue at its source. Only then could he earn the grimoire of water magic. After some time, the boat jolted violently, almost sending Lucian tumbling to the floor. Captain Shaw slammed the brakes, his face twisting with fury. "No passage ahead? On my waters? Who dares block my way?" Lucian stepped to the bow and saw it a blockade stretched across the water, marked by a glaring yellow warning line with signs forbidding entry. Seeing the lake sealed off, Grandpa Max frowned. "Mr. Shaw, since the waterway's closed, maybe we should come back another day." Ben leaned closer, squinting at the words printed on the tape. "Friends of Fish Association." He read slowly. "Those damned fish freaks." Captain Shaw cursed loudly. "I don't care. This is my lake. We're going through." He reached for the throttle, clearly intent on ramming through the blockade. Buzz! Before he could act, a massive oil tanker roared across the water, tearing through the waves before stopping beside their tiny fishing boat. Armed guards stood on deck alongside heavy machinery, unloading wooden crates. The way they handled the cargo, careful, deliberate, made it obvious the contents were valuable. A burly man with a thick beard, dressed in a blue uniform, leaned lazily against the railing and looked down at them with a smug grin. "I'm Jonah Melville, founder of the Friends of Fish Association," he announced. "The waters ahead are closed for a week-long environmental protection operation. I'll have to ask you to turn back." "Jonah Melville." Captain Shaw's tone turned sharp. "What gives you the right to close off these waters? This is my territory. You'd better watch yourself." Jonah chuckled softly and clapped his hands. Immediately, 2 armed men stepped forward behind him. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Those weren't just random guards. Their weapons were advanced. These men were prepared for something serious. "Sir, I think you should reconsider. Don't make us take the hard way." Jonah Melville smiled, though a glint of malice flickered in his eyes. "We're leaving now." Grandpa Max quickly covered Captain Shaw's mouth before he could start swearing. "I'm taking command of this vessel," he said firmly. "From now on, you follow my orders. Turn back immediately. We're not fishing today." Captain Shaw's veins bulged in anger, but after a tense moment, he snorted coldly and turned the boat around. Watching the small fishing boat retreat, Jonah Melville smirked from the deck of the tanker. "A mere fisherman dares challenge me? What a rare fool!" Lucian sat at the edge of the boat, eyes fixed on the oil tanker growing smaller in the distance, lost in thought. The cargo on that ship was definitely suspicious. It had to be connected to the lake monster. It had been ages since he'd watched Ben 10, and his memories were hazy. Combined with the fragments of this body's original memories, many details had long since blurred. "Grandpa, are we really just going to leave like this?" Gwen frowned, her gaze lingering on the massive oil tanker behind them. Grandpa Max nodded. "Those people don't look like the friendly type. And with weapons like that, we wouldn't stand a chance. We're just ordinary civilians. Better to live and plan than rush in blind," he added. "We'll think of something once we're back." Ben's eyes lit up. "But we have our cousin. With him here, that so-called Friends of Fish group doesn't stand a chance." Captain Shaw gave Ben a puzzled glance, then looked over at Lucian, his expression turning skeptical. Sure, the kid looked strong, but without weapons? What could he possibly do against those armed men? Seeing this, Grandpa Max quickly covered Ben's mouth with a laugh. "Kids say the wildest things. Please don't mind him, Mr. Shaw." As time passed, the Friends of Fish's tanker finally disappeared from view. Lucian moved to the stern of the fishing boat, keeping low. Once he was sure no one was watching, he reached for his watch. If not now, then when? It was about time someone put those arrogant bastards in their place. Boom! A thunderous explosion shook the air. The lake's surface surged violently, lifting the small fishing boat high as waves crashed around them. The vessel rocked out of control, tilting dangerously from bow to stern. Lucian grabbed the deck railing, steadying himself against the violent motion. Splash! A massive, emerald green tentacle burst from the lake's depths, surrounded by clouds of bubbles. Its overwhelming presence radiated menace as it shot toward the Friends of Fish's oil tanker at terrifying speed. Chapter 18, Ripya's arrival. It's the lake monster. At the bow, Captain Shaw gripped the wheel tightly, his eyes blazing with excitement. After years of tracking, he had finally found the kraken. Dark green tentacles lashed across the lake like raging dragons, whipping up towering white waves as they surged straight toward the Friends of Fish Association. It's the lake monster. At the bow, Captain Shaw gripped the wheel tightly, his eyes blazing with excitement. After years of tracking, he had finally found kraken. Dark green tentacles lashed across the lake like raging dragons, whipping up towering white waves as they surged straight toward the Friends of Fish Association. Ben, get back! Stay away from the deck! Grandpa Max reached out and pulled the stunned Ben back. "Grandpa, what should we do?" Ben asked, his voice trembling. Gwen was just as frightened. Facing such a ferocious and monstrous creature, both felt a deep, helpless fear. "You two head back first." Lucian stepped forward. "Leave this to me. That lake monster's target is the Friends of Fish Association. It won't go after you." "All right," Grandpa Max said with a grave nod. They were deep in the lake now. This was no place for mistakes. One wrong move could cost their lives. "Damn it! I actually forgot to bring weapons today." Captain Shaw roared angrily. "We're going back to grab our gear, then we'll come back and catch that lake monster alive." Whoosh! The moment he finished, Captain Shaw slammed the throttle forward, the fishing boat tearing through swirling snowflakes as it sped toward the village. Meanwhile, Lucian moved to the back of the boat, raised the Omnitrix on his wrist, and pressed the switch. A series of alien projections flickered to life in emerald light. 4 arms, diamond head, wild mutt, upgrade. Lucian shook his head. They were all strong, but none fit for underwater combat. Beep! A slender fish-like alien suddenly appeared on the hologram. A faint smile curved Lucian's lips. "You're up." He slammed his hand down without hesitation. A burst of blue light flared from the stern, followed by a splash as something fell into the water. The roaring engine masked the sound, and Captain Shaw noticed nothing. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, burning with obsession. He couldn't wait to return, grab his special weapon, and capture the legendary lake monster. Grandpa Max glanced toward the stern, knowing Lucian had already taken action. Ben and Gwen exchanged a look, then shrugged. Splash! A towering wall of white waves rose like a giant beast, roaring as it charged toward the oil tanker, claws of foam stretching wide. At the edge of the deck, Jonah Melville's eyes gleamed coldly. Since the mother's here, I'll take you all down at once." He barked an order, and every armed man on deck lined up along the railing, weapons ready, facing the oncoming monster without fear. Roar! The massive creature burst through the waves with a thunderous roar, its mouth filled with jagged fangs. Its tentacles shot forward, striking at the wooden crates on the transport deck. "Attack!" Jonah shouted. "Capture that lake monster alive, it'll sell for a fortune." Even as he yelled, his mind drifted to visions of luxury Hawaiian beaches, sunshine, bikini-clad women, cherry blossoms, days drenched in gold and jade, surrounded by beauty and indulgence. Rat-a-tat-tat! Flashes erupted from the machine guns as streams of bullets poured forth, merging into a storm of steel that ripped through the air toward the monster. Countless bullets howled, hammering into the lake monster's body, forcing it back with pained roars. These specially treated rounds packed the power of sniper bullets, but fired in machine gun bursts. Even the thick-skinned kraken struggled under the relentless assault. Roar! Gritting its teeth through unbearable pain, the lake monster forced its tentacles forward. Like agile vines, they whipped toward the massive wooden crate. "Quick! Increase firepower!" Jonah Melville shouted. They couldn't let the lake monster take those crates. Rat-a-tat-tat! A dozen armed men unleashed a storm of bullets, ignoring the heat rolling off their gun barrels as they pulled the triggers again and again, hammering the monster with relentless fire. But it was too late. The lake monster's body was riddled with bullet holes, covered in a dense web of wounds. None were deep, but the pain was agonizing. Even under the barrage, it swept its tentacles toward the wooden crate, trying to drag it away. Then something changed. The mech guarding the crate suddenly swung its massive iron fist, slamming the injured tentacle back. Roar! The lake monster howled in pain as another wave of bullets struck its body. Covering its face, it staggered backward under the violent fire, yet still refused to retreat. That crate clearly held something it couldn't abandon. Ha 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 ha! How touching, big lake monster! I'll reunite you with it right now. Jonah Melville charged forward, piloting the towering mech with a furious roar. Its claws crackled with blinding electricity as it lunged straight for the lake monster. The monster bellowed in rage, lashing out two thick tentacles like whips. Crackle! High-voltage current met flesh. The lightning from the mech's hands clashed with the monster's tentacles, exploding in a shower of electric arcs. Energy surged through the creature's body, forcing out a piercing, pained scream. Already wounded, the lake monster couldn't endure the brutal current. Its eyes dulled, its movements slowed, and it began to sink into unconsciousness. "Ha! No matter how strong you are, you'll never beat me." Jonah Melville laughed wildly inside the cockpit. "In this world, there's no freak I can't crush." "Is that so?" A cold voice came from behind. Startled, Jonah Melville cut off the current and turned the mech around. Freed from the surge of electricity, the lake monster let out a faint sigh of relief, its half-lidded eyes fading as it slowly sank into the lake. "What the hell are you?" Jonah Melville shouted, staring in disbelief at the figure before him. Covered in scales, with pale blue skin and a green light dangling from its head, the creature's face was twisted and savage, its mouth full of jagged fangs. "Ripyaws!" With a roar, Ripyaws lunged forward, clamping onto the mech's arm with both hands and biting down hard. Snap! The powerful bite sheared through the metal limb instantly. Wires sparked and crackled at the torn edge, sizzling with short circuits. "Ah! You damn monster!" Jonah Melville's voice shook with fury, his eyes bloodshot. That mech had cost him years of effort and an enormous fortune. Losing just one arm meant millions in damage. His rage boiled over. He switched the mech's fist to a spinning drill claw, its blades whirring so fast the air itself stung. "Die, you filthy fish man!" The deadly spiral claw surged forward, carrying a storm of violent power, driving straight toward Ripyaws. Chapter 19, Fleeing in Defeat. The sky was heavy and dim. What had been a clear blue stretch just moments ago was now swallowed by thunderclouds. Cold wind howled, sending ripples across the once calm lake. Bolts of lightning split the sky, their glare turning the vast surface of the water a ghostly purple. On the fishing boat, Ripyaws stood alone, facing the towering mech. In his gaze, the rapidly spinning spiral blade loomed larger and larger, glinting with a sinister chill. A direct hit from that thing wouldn't just wound, it would flay him alive. Ripyaws ducked under the strike and lunged forward, locking both arms around the mech. With a violent kick, he shoved it backward, hurling the machine straight into the lake. "Don't move!" a voice shouted from behind. Ripyaws turned to see Jonah Melville's men fully armed, guns aimed directly at him. As he considered his next move, a massive tentacle suddenly burst from the water. Before anyone could react, it wrapped around the soldiers and dragged them beneath the surface. Gurgle! Jonah Melville's men were gone, pulled into the lake's depths by the monster below. Bubbles churned to the surface as they struggled in vain, swallowed by the abyss. Under the overwhelming might of the creature, there was no chance they'd survive. Ripyaws stood on the edge of the deck, watching silently. Karma always came around, not every weakling deserved to be saved. Splash! A towering mech shot up from the water and hovered over the lake. Inside, Jonah Melville scanned the area until his gaze locked onto Ripyaws. "You stupid fish! How dare you ruin my plans!" Fury surged through Jonah Melville. The mech's arm shot out, clamping onto the deck as he hauled himself onto the tanker. "A bunch of poachers? You think you can challenge me?" Ripyaws scoffed. "Then die!" Jonah Melville raised his remaining mechanical arm, crackling with violent electricity, and fired straight at Ripyaws. Seeing the attack coming, Ripyaws leapt back and grabbed an iron bar from the deck, hurling it at the mech with all his strength. He wasn't dumb enough to take that current head-on. The same power had nearly killed the lake monster. Ripyaws knew his strength was in the water, not on land. Sizzle! The lightning-clad mechanical arm shredded the iron bar into pieces that clattered across the deck. Just as Jonah Melville prepared to strike again, a thick tentacle suddenly surged from the water, as wide as a barrel. It coiled tightly around the large wooden crate and yanked it toward the lake. "No! Let go of my eggs!" Jonah Melville roared, his eyes bloodshot. He abandoned Ripyaz and charged toward the tentacle's source. Splash! The lake monster moved fast. Before he could reach it, it had already dragged the crate underwater. "Give them back!" Consumed by rage, Jonah Melville lost all sense of restraint. He plunged his mech into the water, thrusters tearing through the currents as he chased after the crate. Roar! In the dark depths, the lake monster easily ripped the crate apart. 2 large, round brown eggs rolled out, drifting into its arms. Its massive eyes softened with almost human warmth as it held the eggs close, cradling them gently against its chest. Not far away, Ripyaz watched, the light from the lantern on his head illuminating the scene. "So the crate held monster eggs," he muttered. "No wonder it went berserk. The friends of fish must have stolen its children. The most terrifying creatures in the world are always mothers who've lost their young." Suddenly, a blinding light tore through the darkness. A towering mech plunged from above, its floodlights cutting through the murky water as it charged toward the lake monster. Its speed was tremendous, thrusters roaring as it closed the distance. Before the monster could react, Jonah Melville drove a powerful punch straight into its head. Startled, the lake monster let out a thunderous roar. A surge of bubbles rose to the surface, and the 2 eggs slipped from its grasp. In a flash, Jonah Melville darted past its bulk, snatching both eggs with one arm and shooting toward the surface at full speed. Roar! The lake monster bellowed in rage, its 2 massive tentacles whipping forward like giant serpents, closing in on Jonah Melville from both sides. "Nice try, but these eggs are mine." Jonah Melville's eyes gleamed with vicious determination. He hurled the 2 eggs toward the lake's surface, then spun around and raised his powerful mechanical arm. The lake monster's tentacles were already upon him. Jonah Melville sneered. Electricity burst from his arm as he swung the claw forward, seizing one of the thick tentacles in a crackling grip. Sizzle! The dark depths lit up with violent flashes of light. Electricity surged wildly through the water. The lake monster's eyes widened as its entire body convulsed, racked by unbearable pain. Normally, such current would have struck Jonah Melville too, but the mech's special construction insulated him completely. Bolts of lightning crackled around them without pause. The lake monster struggled, but the crushing voltage locked its muscles in place, paralyzing it completely. Its life force was slipping away. "Since I can't take you alive," Jonah Melville snarled, "I'll just kill you instead." A lake monster's corpse could fetch a fortune. Collectors would pay anything for a trophy like that. Then, a dark shadow darted behind him. "Who's there?" Jonah Melville barked. "Your granddaddy." Ripyaz, fighting through the lingering paralysis in his body, lunged forward and clamped onto the mech, his steel fangs bared like a predator from the deep. With one savage bite, he sank his teeth into the mech's arm. Snap! The jagged rows of fangs, harder than steel, crushed through the mechanical arm in a single bite, instantly cutting off the electric current. "It's you!" Jonah Melville roared, eyes burning with hatred. If he had the chance, he'd rip that damned fishman apart piece by piece until nothing was left. But he never got the chance. Freed from the high-voltage current, the kraken lunged forward, its jaws snapping wide. In one swift motion, it shredded the mech and swallowed Jonah Melville whole. The kraken's massive eyes met Ripyaz. For a brief moment, its gaze softened. It let out a low rumble, then stretched out a tentacle to pull its eggs close. Cradling the unharmed eggs, the lake monster's eyes glimmered with relief and joy. "I should get going," Ripyaz muttered, flicking his tail as he started for the surface. Once on land, his tail would split into legs, an adaptation that made him truly amphibious. Suddenly, a dark, snake-like shadow swept past him. Ripyaz tensed instantly, expecting another enemy attack. He spun around, eyes filled with killing intent. But then he froze. The lake monster extended a tentacle, gently brushing his cheek while murmuring softly in an unintelligible tone. "Oh, hell no!" Ripyaz waved his hands frantically, shaking his head before darting toward the surface like a startled rocket. When he broke through the water, he saw that the Friends of Fish's oil tanker had already been seized. Security officers crowded the deck, taking photos and collecting evidence. Grandpa Max was there too, speaking with the officers, likely giving his report. "Guess Grandpa ratted out the Friends of Fish," Ripyaz muttered smugly. No matter the world, poaching endangered creatures was a serious crime punishable by death in the worst cases. Not far away, Captain Shaw was ferrying Ben and the others. "Where's that lake monster?" "I'm bringing it in," Captain Shaw shouted, still intent on catching the kraken. Ben shrugged. "Relax. I'm sure some heroes already dealt with it." "I believe that." "Ben's right," Gwen said with a smile. Watching the scene, Ripyaz chuckled quietly, then slipped beneath the surface once more, gliding silently toward the fishing boat. Chapter 20, The Grimoire of Water Magic. Back in the small village. After resolving the lake monster incident, Grandpa finally felt at ease. He took Lucian and the others to rent a small rowboat from Captain Shaw, a simple paddle boat, light and easy to handle. Together, they set out on the lake to enjoy the scenery and do some fishing. This time, there was no Captain Shaw's scowl, and no terrifying lake monster, just a peaceful family outing. Soft sunlight shimmered over the clear blue lake as a cool autumn breeze drifted by, refreshing and gentle. The little fishing boat glided smoothly across the still water, surrounded by calm and quiet. Ben and Gwen crowded in front of Lucian, their eyes wide with curiosity as they listened to him recount the lake monster story. So the Friends of Fish were bad guys after all. "I knew I didn't like them," Ben said, eyes burning with indignation. Gwen looked at Lucian with admiration. "'Cause, you're amazing. You didn't just save the lake monster, you helped it get its child back. That's so cool." Girls always had a bit of admiration for brave boys. "No big deal," Lucian said with a smile. "But that Jonah Melville mech was pretty strong. Even the lake monster couldn't take it head-on. That kind of high-voltage current could kill entire schools of fish in seconds." Even transformed as Ripyaz, Lucian had no desire to face it directly. "Ding, congratulations, host, on successfully pacifying the lake monster. Reward obtained, Grimoire of Water Magic *1. Grimoire of Water Magic." Lucian's eyes brightened. It sounded mysterious, definitely some kind of magic book. Curious, he grabbed his backpack, pretended to reach inside, and secretly summoned the Grimoire of Water Magic. He began examining it closely. The cover was old and worn, dark red in color, etched with intricate and cryptic symbols. Lucian frowned slightly. None of it made any sense to him. He opened it and found short notes describing spells and techniques for controlling water magic. Page 1, Water magic originated in ancient times, created by a powerful water spirit capable of commanding the element of water, one of the 5 forces of nature. Only those with exceptional magical talent and strong intuition can master this art. Otherwise, one risks losing control and falling into madness. Caution is advised. Chanting is required during spellcasting to maximize a spell's power. The spells are divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. The higher the level, the harder it is to learn. Practitioners must be patient and persistent. Only through steady effort can one fully master water magic and become a grand mage of water. The first half of the book mostly discussed origins and taboos. Skimming through, Lucian flipped ahead to the section on practical spells. Beginner spell, Aqua Arrow. Description: channel the power of water spirits to form a water arrow. Chant the incantation softly, form a circle with the left thumb and index finger, and release the arrow from the right index finger. Incantation: by the oath of water, in thy name, I borrow the power of spirits shoot. Mist spirit spell. Description: use condensed water vapor to obscure the enemy's sight, surrounding the target in mist. Often used for escape, distraction, or ambush. Incantation: Spirit of Mist, power of the demon, cloud their eyes, protect my form. Further in, there were intermediate and advanced spells techniques like Water Bubble Spell, Water Dragon Soul, and Thousand Arrows Volley, each seemingly more powerful than the last. Following the book's instructions, Lucian formed a circle with his left thumb and index finger, then extended his right index finger toward the lake's surface. By the oath of water, in thy name, I borrow the power of spirits shoot. Lucian straightened his finger and focused all his strength, attempting to fire a water arrow. For a long moment, everything was silent. Lucian shook his head helplessly. It seemed he wasn't cut out for this kind of magic. "Cuz, what are you doing?" Gwen leaned over curiously. When she noticed the magic book in his hands, her eyes sparkled. "Cuz, what is this? Why do I feel like it's calling to me?" Gwen's eyes widened in surprise, her mouth slightly open. "It's like, somehow, I'm connected to it." As she spoke, she swallowed nervously, her gaze burning with desire. She clearly wanted the book. Lucian turned to meet her eager eyes and instantly understood. In the original story, Gwen awakened her magic after swapping bodies with the Charmcaster. That meant she already had an innate gift for magic, otherwise, she couldn't have become such a powerful mage. "Here. See if you can use it." Lucian handed the grimoire of water magic to the excited Gwen. She gripped the book tightly, her eyes glowing with excitement, almost sparking with energy. "Thank you, cousin. I don't know why, but I just really wanted this." "No problem." Lucian waved casually, making up an excuse. "I got it after defeating the lake monster. You can try practicing with it. If you really have a talent for this, I'll give you the book." In truth, the grimoire of water magic wasn't much use to him. He already had the Omnitrix. Spending time on spells was pointless when he could focus on strengthening his alien heroes instead. Just then, Ben wandered over. "Hey, geek, what's that? Don't tell me you're reading while we're fishing," Ben teased, clearly enjoying the chance to annoy Gwen. "Go away, loser," Gwen snapped, rolling her eyes. "Enough, you two," Grandpa called from not far away. "Come on, fishing's supposed to be fun." Gwen ignored them, her attention fixed on the grimoire of water magic. "Grimoire of water magic," Ben read aloud, then burst out laughing. "You actually believe in magic? Guess the sun really did fry your brain." But what happened next left everyone speechless. Gwen's face turned serious. She lifted her slender right hand and recited softly, "Spirit of Mist, power of the demon, cloud their eyes, protect my form." The moment she spoke, thick mist began spreading around them, quickly blanketing the lake. The surrounding scenery blurred and vanished, replaced by a sea of white fog. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Lucian's heart skipped. "That's the Mist Spirit spell." Mist Spirit spell creates water vapor to obscure an enemy's vision, surrounding them in fog. Commonly used for escape, distraction, or ambush. To cast it perfectly on her first try, her magical talent was undeniable. "Oh, come on! How is this even possible?" Ben shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. Grandpa Max furrowed his brow slightly, silent, deep in thought. Then Gwen extended her hand again and shouted, "By the oath of water, in thy name, I borrow the power of spirits shoot." A sharp burst echoed as the aqua arrow struck the lake, sending a towering spray of water into the air with a booming splash. To master 2 beginner-level water spells right from the start, what incredible talent, Lucian thought, nodding to himself. "Gwen, try an intermediate spell, pick any one you like," Lucian said with a faint smile. "Okay, cousin." Her eyes gleamed with determination as she pressed her palms together and chanted. "Gather the void into water, condense water into a dragon, and turn the dragon into a soul. Water Dragon Soul. A powerful mid-tier spell, one meant for offense and destruction. Chapter 21, Chapter 21, Upgrade. Lucian watched the scene with anticipation, eager to see if Gwen could cast an intermediate level spell. But, the result was disappointing. After all, Gwen had only just begun learning magic. Though her talent was impressive, summoning the Water Dragon Soul was still far beyond her reach. The blue Water Dragon Soul barely formed its tail before the half-shaped body collapsed, scattering into mist that filled the air. It was clear that summoning the Water Dragon Soul required a deep reserve of magical power. Gwen lowered her head, looking dejected like a scolded child. She walked up to Lucian and handed the spellbook back. "Cousin, I guess I don't have the talent for magic after all." "You should take the book back," she said sadly, pouting. Lucian froze on the spot. This was what she called no talent. If that was the case, then what did that make him mediocre? Taking a deep breath, Lucian patted her shoulder. "No, you've got real talent. You're well suited to this spellbook. As promised, it's yours now. I hope you'll practice hard and live up to your cousin's expectations." Gwen blinked, then nodded seriously. "Thank you, cousin. I'll work hard." "That's not fair. I want to learn magic too," Ben shouted, marching forward to grab Gwen's water magic spellbook. How could that be? Whatever his silly cousin had, he had to have too, otherwise, it just didn't sit right with him. "No way." Gwen shook her head and hugged the book tightly. "It's fine, Gwen. Let Ben try it out," Lucian said with a calm smile, glancing at the sulking boy. "If you can make it work, you two can share it." "Deal." "No problem." Ben agreed instantly, full of confidence. But soon he trudged back with a defeated look, handing the book over. No matter how many times he chanted, nothing happened. "All right, Ben. Maybe your gift lies elsewhere. Don't lose heart," Lucian said. In truth, the Omnitrix was meant to belong to Ben. But since Lucian's arrival had already altered the story, he planned to craft powerful weapons, guns, armor, and more to give Ben when the time came. "Disperse!" Gwen called softly, waving her hand to clear the lingering mist. "Gwen, remember, practice magic carefully and only for good," Grandpa said from the bow of the boat, rod in hand. "Don't rush. Magic is no joke, understand?" "I understand, Grandpa," Gwen replied, staring at his back in silence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they rode back to the small village, found an inn, and settled in for the night. The next morning, Grandpa led Lucian and the others back to the rust bucket to begin their next journey. "Grandpa, it's the weekend. Where are we going?" Ben asked eagerly. "The Sumo Slammers Expo? The arcade?" Grandpa smiled faintly. "Neither. We're spending the weekend at your Aunt Vera's place." "Oh no, not the boring old lady." Ben groaned, clutching his head. "I like Aunt Vera," Gwen said cheerfully. "Oh please, that's because you already act like a little old lady," Ben sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Desert Highway, a gas station by the roadside. Get out of the way, you stinky old man. There's a pile of cash waiting for me to take out." A fierce robber shoved Grandpa Max aside from the ATM, hooking a sharp iron bar onto it and tying it to the car's rear bumper. The engine roared to life. Meanwhile, Lucian stood at the counter with Ben and Gwen. "I'll have a honeydew ice cream, please," Lucian said calmly. "I want chocolate flavor." Ben grinned. Excuse me, do you have any ice cream flavors that are low fat and low sugar?" Gwen asked carefully. "Napkins," the cashier replied flatly, showing no expression. Crack! A loud crash echoed from outside. Lucian's eyes narrowed, and he rushed out immediately. "Grandpa's still outside," he called, tossing his ice cream aside as he sprinted out. Beside the gas station, a red sedan had a chain fastened to its rear, locked tightly around the nearby ATM. "Heh, we're rolling in it now." The robber inside cackled as he stomped the gas pedal, ready to tear the ATM from the ground. Suddenly, the car's dashboard twisted into a swirling mass of green and black liquid, seizing full control of the vehicle. "What the hell is this thing?" the robber shouted in alarm. A single green eye appeared within the liquid, staring straight at him. "Sorry, insufficient funds." The words barely fell before the strange substance morphed into a humanoid figure and kicked the robber clean out of the car. "Ah! A monster!" The robber tumbled to the ground, terrified and scrambling backward, completely losing his composure. Upgrade stepped out of the car, its movements smooth and emotionless. The skin connecting its head to its arms was pitch black, patterned with green lines. Its torso and legs were white, with a green circular eye embedded on its head. Its body shimmered like gelatin, able to stretch and shift freely, light as air. Despite its fluid appearance, Upgrade's body was incredibly durable. Ordinary physical attacks were useless against it. "I advise you not to meddle, Mr. Monster." By the ATM, a bearded robber yanked the iron hook loose and spun it in his hand before hurling it straight at Upgrade. "Noisy." Upgrade tilted its head slightly, dodging the hook with ease. It caught the chain in one hand and yanked hard, slamming the robber to the ground. Both robbers dropped to their knees, pleading desperately for mercy, hoping the alien would spare them. "Grandpa, call the police," said Upgrade, the green circle on its head flashing. "All right." Grandpa Max replied with a proud smile. His grandson was getting better at using the watch every day. Since the police would take some time to arrive, Upgrade tied the two robbers to a streetlight and left them there to await justice. The group then got back on the road, heading toward the scorching desert town. Desert town. The blazing sun hung high in the sky, radiating intense heat. The ground shimmered with waves of hot air, the temperature so high it made the air itself waver. "Mr. Marty, long time no see. Been staying inside to escape the heat?" A woman with short ash-gray hair stood in her doorway, greeting her neighbor warmly. Marty had just turned the doorknob when he heard Vera's voice. Smiling, he turned and said, "Yes, Vera. I thought I'd get some fresh air, but it's still too hot out. These old bones can't take it anymore." He fanned himself with a wrinkled hand, sweat trickling down his forehead. "You're right, this summer's been unbearably hot." Vera smiled gently. "You should head back inside, Mr. Marty. It's far too hot out today. I still need to stop by the supermarket to pick up a few things. My dear grandchildren are visiting soon." "All right then," Vera said with a nod as Marty waved her off. Taking a deep breath, she shuffled her plump frame toward the nearby supermarket. Inside the dimly lit house, Marty wiped the sweat from his forehead, grabbed a bucket of popcorn, and sat down in front of the TV, watching intently. He didn't notice that in the darkness behind him, a slick green liquid was creeping silently up the back of the sofa like a venomous serpent waiting to strike. Chapter 22, Aunt Vera. The next day at noon, the blazing sun scorched the earth, waves of heat rippling through the air. Many elderly villagers, kind and cheerful, stood chatting under the sunlight, their laughter blending with the hum of cicadas. Some trimmed flowers and plants, others fixed pipes, the whole scene buzzed with life. The scorching sun above seemed to have no effect on them at all. Down the narrow village road came an old, battered RV, looking out of place and drawing curious glances from the elders. Grandpa Max held the steering wheel and grinned. "Better watch your faces later." Vera's got quite the grip when she pinches cheeks. "Oh, man." Ben slumped in his seat, staring out the window. Just then, an old man standing on a rooftop suddenly performed a backflip. To Ben's horror, he landed steadily on the ground. "No way! A martial arts grandpa!" Ben gaped in disbelief. Jumping from that height and still landing perfectly, was that even possible for an old man? Where? Gwen followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual, no martial arts grandpa anywhere. I think the heat's cooked your brain, Gwen said, resting her chin on her hand as she gave her dweeb cousin a helpless look. It's real! Ben yelled, clenching his fists. Lucian's calm eyes didn't waver. From the fragmented memories in his mind, he knew something was off about this desert town. But before he figured out what was happening, he couldn't risk alerting anyone. His presence had already altered the story's original flow. Vilgax and Dr. Onimo were proof enough some details had clearly changed. Lucian turned to Ben. All right, Ben, I believe you. But before anything else, you might want to think about how to survive Aunt Vera's face pinching. Oh no. Ben smacked his forehead. The town wasn't big. Soon, they reached Aunt Vera's house. As they stepped out of the RV, Aunt Vera came up with a bright smile. Max, it's been so long. You haven't changed a bit. Yet, Vera, Grandpa Max said with a warm chuckle. I brought Ben and Gwen this time to visit you. He paused for a moment, then added, and I brought someone else along. I think you'll be quite surprised. Oh? Let me see who's the special guest. Vera laughed, covering her mouth. Lucian opened the car door and stepped out. Hello, Aunt Vera. Vera's eyes widened in shock, then filled with delight. My goodness, it can't be. Is that really you, Lucian? Heaven must have sent you back to us. She rushed forward and pulled him into a tight hug. Lucian rubbed his nose lightly and smiled. Yeah, Aunt Vera. It's been a long time. According to the memories of his body's original owner, he had been missing for 9 years, vanished with his parents into the endless sea, never to be heard from again. You haven't changed at all, child. Aunt Vera smiled kindly and reached out to pinch Lucian's handsome cheeks. Lucian instinctively wanted to dodge but forced himself to stay still. Ben and Gwen stood nearby, watching him get his cheeks pinched, struggling to hold back their laughter. But soon enough, they too fell victim to Aunt Vera's merciless cheek pinching. Not long after, Aunt Vera led everyone into the house. Oh my gosh, why do old folks' houses always have this weird smell? Ben muttered, pinching his nose. He spoke so softly that Aunt Vera didn't hear him. Gwen tapped him on the head and whispered, Jerk, don't say things like that. Lucian shook his head with a wry smile. Ben was only 10, still at that age where kids spoke their minds without thinking. And truthfully, he wasn't wrong. A strange scent filled Aunt Vera's house, the kind people often called old person smell. Aunt Vera, ever the gracious host, cheerfully led Lucian and the others to the dining table, motioning for them to sit. The table was covered with coffee-colored, jelly-like dishes she had prepared early that morning, made especially to welcome Ben and his cousins. Everyone, dig in. Don't be shy, Aunt Vera said with a warm smile. Ben picked up a fork and poked one of the coffee-colored jellies. To his horror, it quivered and bounced with unsettling elasticity, making him shiver. Vera, what are these brown chunks? Grandpa Max asked curiously. Aunt Vera giggled. Oh, these. I made them just for you, all dried pork. They're delicious. Lucian's mouth twitched slightly. Turning dried pork into something jelly-like, her cooking definitely rivaled Grandpa Max's. Lucian, eat more. There's plenty more in the fridge, Aunt Vera said kindly. Thanks, Aunt Vera. Lucian let out a dry laugh. He looked down at the dried pork in his bowl, took a deep breath, and scooped up a small piece. Slowly, he put it into his mouth. It wasn't as bad as he'd expected, but the texture was strange, like pork-flavored gelatin. One bite was enough to know he didn't want a second. Ben, you too. You're growing boys, you need to eat more meat. As she spoke, Aunt Vera scooped a large helping of the dried pork into Ben's bowl, piling it high. Oh, come on, Ben groaned, rubbing his forehead. Then came the chatting between Grandpa Max and Aunt Vera, reminiscing about old times, sometimes laughing, sometimes falling into nostalgic silence. Lucian and Ben had no way to join the conversation, so they sat quietly on the side, occasionally exchanging helpless looks. At one point, when Aunt Vera and Gwen weren't paying attention, Ben dumped all the dried pork from his bowl into Gwen's. Gwen's face turned red with fury, and her reaction made everyone burst out laughing. "I'm going to the bathroom," Ben said, standing up. He was bored out of his mind. Sitting with a bunch of old folks felt like torture for someone his age. Lucian's eyes narrowed slightly as he watched Ben's retreating figure. Sunlight poured down, the breeze soft and warm. Ben stepped outside, breathing in the fresh air like a bird finally freed from its cage. Finally free, he stretched with relief. Suddenly, a delicious aroma drifted through the air, making his stomach rumble. "That smells amazing. There must be something good nearby." His eyes lit up, and he followed the scent eagerly. Just the thought of Aunt Vera's pork jerky made him shudder, killing any appetite he had. But this smell, it was the difference between heaven and hell. Before long, Ben found himself standing before a window where a steaming cheese pizza sat inside, releasing waves of mouth-watering fragrance. A middle-aged woman was inside, swatting at flies. Ben was about to call out to her but hesitated. "Better wait until she's done with the flies," he muttered. But the next moment made his eyes go wide in shock. Chapter 23, The Mysterious Woman. The seemingly frail woman suddenly sprang forward like a grasshopper, her legs snapping with inhuman strength as she launched herself upward and landed flat against the ceiling. Her neck twisted unnaturally, and in one horrifying motion, she swallowed the fly whole. Then she dropped back to the floor, rolled her neck with a crack, and acted as if nothing had happened. "Ah!" Ben gasped. The middle-aged woman snapped her head around, revealing sharp, beast-like fangs. She stepped up to the window, glanced around suspiciously, but saw nothing. After a moment, she shrugged and walked back inside. Under the window, Ben clamped a hand tightly over his mouth, struggling to stay silent, terrified the monster woman might hear him. Only when she disappeared from view did he finally release his breath, gasping for air. "I have to tell my cousin. He's gotta come and beat up those monsters." Ben sprinted through the narrow streets of the small town, his eyes darting left and right, afraid something monstrous might leap out at any moment. Buzz! A sudden roar came from the left. An old car approached, driven by an emotionless old man wearing glasses, heading straight toward him. As the vehicle passed by, the man's eyes flicked toward Ben, a flash of murderous intent glinting in them before vanishing as quickly as it came. "Marty!" Ben rubbed his eyes, staring after the retreating car, unsure if he'd imagined it. He recognized that man, Aunt Vera's neighbor. When they used to visit this town years ago, they'd often seen Marty stopping by for a chat. "Where's he going?" Ben muttered, frowning as he watched the man's hunched figure disappear into the distance. Just as the car was about to leave his sight, something went terribly wrong. The fire hydrant beside the road suddenly burst, spinning wildly and spraying water in every direction. A torrent of water slammed against Marty's car, soaking it completely. For some reason, the old man reacted as though he'd seen a ghost. He jerked the steering wheel frantically, trying to avoid the water. Screech! The car lost control, skidding and spinning across the asphalt. Tires screeched and burned, leaving chaotic black marks all over the road. With a thunderous crash, the vehicle slammed into a large tree. The impact sent the old man flying through the air, his body smashing onto the hard ground with a sickening thud. Ben, who had witnessed the crash from not far away, ran toward him immediately. "What's wrong with that old man, Marty? Why's he so scared of water?" Ben muttered in confusion, but he didn't slow down. That crash looked brutal. If the man wasn't dead, he was definitely badly hurt. He had to check if Marty was still alive, maybe even call an ambulance. In his panic, Ben completely forgot about the earlier scene, the woman who had eaten a fly. On the lawn, Old Man Marty lay face down, motionless. Ben ran up to him, panting heavily. He crouched down, shook his shoulder, and called out, "Hey! Are you okay?" There was no response. Marty lay completely still, as if he'd passed out cold. This guy, he's not dead, is he? A chilling thought crept into Ben's mind. He hesitated, then cautiously reached out, placing a finger under Marty's nose to check for breath. Roar! Without warning, Marty sprang up violently. His body jerked upright, his face pitted and oozing green slime that writhed and bubbled under the heat. Ah! Ben stumbled backward in shock, his face going pale. "Uncle Marty! You've turned into one of them!" He turned and bolted, panic taking over. Behind him, Marty bared his blood-stained fangs. His arms stretched unnaturally long, snapping out like snakes as he lunged toward Ben. Ben glanced back and nearly fainted in terror. He snatched up a baseball bat from the ground and hurled it behind him with all his strength. Crack! Marty caught it effortlessly and crushed it in his hand. The bat splintered into shards, scattering across the air like a rain of wooden fragments. "Help!" Ben shouted, sprinting toward Aunt Vera's house. Finding his cousin was the only thought in his mind, his one hope of survival. Roar! Marty lunged after him, moving with terrifying speed, fast enough to rival something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Just ahead, Ben spotted a few elderly people standing together, their faces gentle and kind as they chatted among themselves. "Help!" he yelled, desperate for them to hear him. He was nearly at his limit. Sure enough, the elders turned their heads toward the commotion. But the moment they saw Marty chasing Ben, their kind expressions twisted into monstrous snarls. Sharp fangs jutted from their mouths as they roared and charged straight toward him. Ben's face went pale. This is bad, really bad. With monsters in front of him and behind him, there was nowhere left to run. In his panic, Ben's foot caught on a broken water pipe. He lost his balance and crashed hard onto the ground. Roar! The monster in front was already upon him, and Marty closed in from behind. His eyes gleamed with venom, his twisted face filled with hatred like a demon straight from hell. This is it! Ben thought in despair. Don't tell me everyone in this town's turned into monsters. Whoosh! Whoosh! Just as the monsters were about to pounce, a blue blur streaked past at lightning speed. Wind exploded outward as the blur spun around Ben, blasting the monsters away with crushing force. They crashed to the ground in every direction. "See, cuz!" Ben froze for a moment before his eyes lit up with joy. With his cousin here, those disgusting creatures didn't stand a chance. XLR8 retracted his visor and swept his gaze across the area. The monsters he'd thrown aside were already regenerating, their bodies reforming at a speed visible to the naked eye. The green slime covering the ground writhed and pulsed, merging again into humanoid forms. Their eyes burned with malice as they shrieked and lunged forward, claws ready to rip the two apart. Grabbing Ben, XLR8 darted forward in a blur, easily evading their encirclement. "Looks like physical attacks don't work on these things," XLR8 rasped. Held tightly in his cousin's grip, Ben stared at the grotesque, enraged Old Man Marty in the distance. A thought suddenly struck him. "Cuz! I know how to beat them," he shouted. He quickly explained everything that had happened earlier with Marty. "That makes things a lot easier," XLR8 said, a sharp gleam flashing in his eyes. After hearing Ben's account, he finally remembered the weakness of these phlegm monsters. Roar! 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 The monsters charged again, howling like berserk zombies, vicious and unstoppable. XLR8 scanned the area and spotted a bright red fire hydrant nearby, standing silently by the roadside. He smirked coldly, his eyes flashing. "Let's have a little water fight." In an instant, he vanished from sight and reappeared beside the hydrant. With one powerful twist, he yanked it open. He grabbed a thick hose, connected it to the hydrant, and turned the valve full blast. Whoosh! A massive jet of water erupted from the hose, roaring forward with tremendous force. The torrent slammed into the phlegm monsters, blasting them off their feet. The creatures screeched in terror, their earlier ferocity gone as they scrambled to escape. "Not a single one's getting away," XLR8 said with a grin. Under the relentless stream, the monsters melted into puddles of green slime, their bodies dissolving completely until nothing remained but ooze. XLR8 raised the hose, sweeping the street clean, flushing the remains into the sewer to erase all traces. He knew more of these things were probably hiding somewhere in the shadows. He couldn't afford to lower his guard. And Grandpa, how was he holding up? With that thought, XLR8 grabbed Ben and bolted toward Aunt Vera's house, faster than the wind. Moments after they left, a curvaceous woman in a hip-hop outfit stepped out of a shadowed alley. "How interesting," she murmured, extending a soft pink tongue to lick her lips. Chapter 24, Alice. At dusk, the sky was dyed crimson by the setting sun. A cool evening breeze swept through the quiet streets, stirring up withered yellow leaves that twirled through the air with no clear destination. A black crow flapped its wings as it cut across the fading light, letting out a hoarse caw that echoed into the distance. When Lucian and Ben returned to Aunt Vera's house, they found her already fast asleep. "Come on, it's only 6:30. Ben muttered, exasperated. "All right, don't disturb Aunt Vera's rest," Grandpa said, ruffling Ben's hair. "You two came running back in quite a hurry earlier. Did something happen?" Lucian nodded and explained everything that had occurred. After listening, Grandpa Max's expression grew serious, his brows furrowing. "If what you're saying is true, then those blob aliens have already taken over the whole town. But what about the original townsfolk, the elders? Could they have been eaten by the monsters?" Gwen asked, eyes wide. "Hard to say," Lucian replied slowly. "It's possible they were hidden away somewhere. We have to stop them," Ben said firmly, clenching his fists. "We can't let the town fall completely." "Ben," Grandpa suggested, "you mentioned Marty turned into one of those things. Why don't we head to his house and see if we can find any clues?" Marty's home wasn't far, just a short walk away. Maybe they'd find traces of the missing people there. Even if they'd been devoured, something should have been left behind. They couldn't have just vanished. Lucian nodded in agreement. "I'm coming too," Gwen said immediately. "No," Lucian shook his head. "You stay here and protect Aunt Vera. If any monsters attack, use your water magic. Those creatures are afraid of water." "All right." Gwen lowered her head reluctantly. Lucian smiled and stepped forward, patting her shoulder reassuringly. "Don't be discouraged. You're our strongest weapon against the blob aliens. Honestly, your cousin can't compete with you in terms of firepower right now." Hearing that, Gwen's eyes brightened like stars. She smiled and nodded. "Thanks, cousin. If it weren't for the magic book you gave me, I wouldn't have been able to start training at all. Let's move." Lucian waved a hand and led Grandpa and Ben out toward Marty's house. As she watched them leave, Gwen sighed softly, closed the door, and shook her head. Now it was just her and Aunt Vera, boring and uneventful. Letting out another small sigh, she grabbed her laptop, curled up on the soft sofa, and started browsing through magical texts. Ding dong! After some time, the sharp sound of the doorbell broke the stillness of the night, echoing through the quiet house. "Back already?" Gwen blinked in surprise. She slipped on her slippers and padded softly to the door, peering through the peephole. Outside stood a woman dressed in hip-hop fashion, her long hair cascading down to her waist. She was stunningly beautiful, with porcelain skin and a delicate figure. In her hands, she held a green cake and smiled politely. "At this hour?" Gwen frowned, her suspicion rising. Keeping one hand hidden behind her back, ready to cast a spell if needed, she slowly opened the door. "Hello, may I ask who you're looking for?" Gwen asked with a polite smile, standing in the doorway to block entry. The elegant woman paused briefly at the sight of her, then covered her lips with a soft laugh. "Hello, little one. I'm Alice, the daughter of Mayor Smith. This matcha cake is a special gift my father prepared for Grandma Vera. Is she not home?" As she spoke, Alice extended the cake toward her. "Aunt Vera's already asleep," Gwen replied calmly, keeping her polite smile. "Is there anything else you needed?" She didn't dare lower her guard. In times like these, anyone could be a monster in disguise. Alice shook her head lightly, pressing the cake into Gwen's hands with a warm smile. "Please give this to Grandma Vera for me. It's an important gift. I'll be going now." Looking down at the bright green cake in her hands and the woman's friendly expression, Gwen couldn't bring herself to refuse. She hesitated, then nodded. As Alice walked away, Gwen exhaled softly in relief. She set the matcha cake on the table and went back to studying her notes on magic. "Gwen, who just came by?" Aunt Vera's voice suddenly sounded from behind. Gwen's heart gave a little jolt. She turned around quickly to see Aunt Vera standing at the doorway, rubbing her drowsy eyes. "Aunt Vera, weren't you asleep?" "I got up to use the restroom," Aunt Vera said with a gentle smile. Gwen nodded. "The woman who came just now said she was Mayor Smith's daughter. She brought you a matcha cake as a gift." "Oh, Alice. That child is so beautiful and kind. She often comes by to visit this old lady." At the mention of Alice, Aunt Vera's face softened with genuine warmth. Just then, Gwen suddenly felt the urge to use the bathroom and hurried off in that direction. Vera stepped into the living room. Her eyes landed on the delicate matcha cake on the table, and a faint smile spread across her face. "Perfect timing. I was getting a little hungry." She patted her round belly, picked up the cake, and slowly made her way back into the dim bedroom. Elsewhere, under the flickering light, the pendulum's shadow stretched across the pale wall, each swing accompanied by the deep, echoing tick of the clock. Lucian walked in front, his eyes alert, scanning every corner. Behind him, Ben followed nervously while Grandpa Max kept watch at the rear. The house's furnishings were neat and undisturbed, no signs of struggle. The coffee table, lamp, and television all appeared untouched, as though everything were perfectly normal. Snap! A sharp crack sounded underfoot, unnervingly loud in the quiet darkness. Lucian looked down and saw an empty popcorn bucket. Under the dim glow, its inner surface reflected an eerie crimson tint. Popcorn was scattered across the floor, long forgotten and now swarming with ants, busily ferrying pieces back and forth. "Come take a look," Grandpa Max said, frowning as he bent over a nearby fish tank. Lucian walked up and narrowed his eyes. The tank's water was completely gone. Inside, a small turtle lay weakly at the bottom, its mouth opening and closing faintly, eyes half shut as if on the verge of death. "These things really are afraid of water," Lucian said with a cold smirk. Seeing the poor creature's condition, Ben quickly scooped it up and rushed to the bathroom. He turned on the faucet and filled a bucket with water, gently placing the turtle inside. The little thing immediately came to life, paddling happily and splashing around as if reborn. After a careful search of the entire house, Lucian confirmed that Old Man Marty was nowhere to be found, nor were there any signs of a body. It seemed he had been moved elsewhere. Still, the trip wasn't completely in vain. Lucian glanced meaningfully at the turtle in Ben's hands. "Grandpa, let's head back," he said, turning toward the door. Grandpa Max nodded, and together with Ben, they made their way back to Aunt Vera's house. Evening settled over the small, shadowed room. Vera lay asleep on her soft bed, a peaceful smile on her face and a smear of green frosting still clinging to the corner of her lips. On the bedside table sat half of the matcha cake. Suddenly, the surface of the cake began to quiver. From within, a slimy green slug slowly wriggled its way out. Chapter 25, the long-haired shadow. Early the next morning, a pale streak of light crept across the horizon as the warm glow of dawn slowly rose in the east, pushing away the chill of night. Everyone had gotten up early and gathered in the living room to discuss their next move. "What are you all talking about?" Aunt Vera's voice came suddenly from behind them. She stepped out of her room with a faint smile on her face. Lucian's eyes flickered sharply. Something felt off. Last night, after they'd returned from Marty's house, Gwen had told him about Alice and the matcha cake. Lucian had checked Aunt Vera's room in secret but found nothing out of the ordinary. To be cautious, he'd even examined the cake himself. Aside from its slightly warped shape, there had been nothing strange about it. But now, looking at Aunt Vera, he could feel it this wasn't the same person from before. Her face looked unnaturally stiff. Though her smile was as kind as ever, Lucian's sharp eyes didn't miss the unnatural tension beneath it. "Aunt Vera, you're awake. Did you sleep well last night?" Grandpa Max asked with a friendly grin. "Very well," Vera replied, stepping forward and pinching Ben's cheek. "Ow! Come on!" Ben groaned in pain. "Ben, go pour Aunt Vera a glass of water," Grandpa Max chuckled. Ben opened his mouth to complain, but before he could say anything, Aunt Vera interrupted sharply. "No need. I don't drink water." Her face twisted, a hint of ferocity flashing in her eyes. Both Grandpa Max and Ben froze, exchanging puzzled looks. Grandpa quietly gave Lucian a meaningful glance. Lucian only shook his head slightly, signaling him not to make any sudden moves. At that moment, Gwen came out of the kitchen, carrying a tray with a cup of coffee and a glass of water. "Aunt Vera, you're awake," Gwen said brightly as she approached. "I made you some coffee, please, try it." Aunt Vera's smile stiffened. She instinctively stepped back. Just as Gwen reached her, her foot suddenly slipped. The coffee and water flew from her hands, crashing onto the floor right at Aunt Vera's feet. Crash! The glasses shattered, sending a mix of coffee and clear water spilling across the floor, flowing toward Aunt Vera's shoes. What happened next left everyone stunned. Aunt Vera suddenly leapt into the air, her heavy frame lifting effortlessly as she braced both feet against the walls, glaring down with eyes full of malice. "Wipe it up! Wipe it up right now," she roared. "I'm sorry, Aunt Vera." Gwen panicked and hurried to clean the mess. "Wait, Gwen. Come here, I need to talk to you," Lucian said evenly. She was still too close to Aunt Vera. He had to get her away from the danger first. Though confused, Gwen trusted her cousin. She stepped toward him quickly. Lucian gave a slight nod, satisfied once she was at his side. "I need to go out for a bit," Aunt Vera said suddenly, returning to a strangely calm tone as she turned toward the door. "Wait, Aunt Vera," Lucian called after her. She paused and turned her head, her expression sharpening instantly. Lucian smiled faintly and tossed a cup of water straight at her. Aunt Vera reacted with shocking speed, springing back and dodging the cup with agility impossible for someone her size. But the splashing water sprayed across her exposed arm. Roar! In the blink of an eye, Vera's face and body twisted grotesquely, morphing into a green blob alien. "Ah!" Gwen screamed, completely caught off guard by the sudden transformation. Roar! The creature's long, slimy tentacles whipped through the air like frenzied snakes, lashing out violently toward the group. "Gwen, use the aqua arrow. Take it down!" Lucian shouted. Gwen nodded quickly, lifting her right hand. She pointed her index finger at the charging monster and began chanting softly. "By the oath of water, in thy name, I borrow the power of the spirit shoot." The moment the words left her lips, a surge of power erupted from her fingertip. A fierce, spiraling arrow of water shot forth, radiating icy killing intent as it slammed into the blob alien. Roar! The creature shrieked, its body shriveling rapidly before their eyes. Within seconds, it collapsed into a bubbling pool of foul-smelling pus. Gwen stared at her hands in shock, amazed by the sheer force of her water magic. Ben exhaled shakily, patting his chest to calm himself. Oh man, no wonder Aunt Vera was so afraid of water. She'd turned into one of them. Grandpa Max's face hardened. We need to find the real Vera before it's too late. Lucian nodded, about to respond when a dark, long-haired silhouette flashed past the doorway. Who's there? A cold light flashed in Lucian's eyes as he dashed out the door in pursuit. This town was full of elderly residents. For someone to move that fast, it could only mean one thing: a blob alien. Nothing else fit. Outside, the desert sun was blinding, its glare reflecting off the sand. Lucian squinted, his gaze locking on the figure ahead, a woman, lithe and graceful, her long hair streaming behind her as she sprinted away with startling speed. Stop right there! Lucian yelled. But the woman didn't respond. She just kept running, never once looking back. After several minutes of pursuit, she suddenly darted into a narrow alley. Lucian stopped briefly, assessing the situation, then followed her in without hesitation. With the Omnitrix on his wrist, there was nothing to fear, not even these blob aliens. And if things went south, he could always transform into XLR8 and outrun anything. He entered the alley and froze. The woman stood there with her back to him, motionless as if she had been waiting all along. You lured me here on purpose, didn't you? Lucian said coldly, narrowing his eyes. Smart boy. Alice turned her head slowly, emerald eyes gleaming as she smiled alluringly. You're quite the troublesome one. I didn't expect you to be able to turn into a speedster. But, she added with a mocking smile, you won't be leaving this place alive. Lucian's lips curved into a cold smirk. You think you can kill me all by yourself? Hat. Alice's soft laugh rang like silver bells as she clapped her hands lightly. Why don't you take a look behind you? Tap. 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 A wave of footsteps echoed from the end of the alley. Lucian frowned and turned his head slightly. Dozens of twisted old men shuffled toward him, their limbs contorted, mouths opening to reveal rows of jagged fangs. They growled and hissed like beasts, surrounding him from all sides. Without hesitation, Lucian slammed the Omnitrix on his wrist, the device projecting holographic silhouettes as he cycled through them rapidly. Heat blast. Grey matter. Diamond head. Swamp fire. No good. Fire-type aliens wouldn't help. These blob aliens lived in the desert for a reason. XLR8. You're up. Lucian smacked down the Omnitrix. A blinding green light burst forth, and in the next instant, a fierce, high-speed beast appeared in the narrow alley. Chapter 26, Chapter 26, Wild Mutt. Its whole body was a rusty yellow, covered in coarse fur. It had no eyes, but its mouth was full of fangs, and its long, sharp claws glinted with a chilling light. A wild mutt! Roar! The wild mutt growled twice, clearly exasperated. He'd meant to turn into XLR8, not this. Die already! I'm out of here! With that, Alice leapt into the air, soaring over wild mutt and landing behind the horde of blob aliens. Within moments, she vanished without a trace. In the narrow alleyway, dozens of blob aliens bared their teeth and claws, rushing forward with fierce momentum. Roar! Wild mutt bellowed, its fighting spirit surging. One blob alien swung its green tentacle like a massive whip, lashing out with a violent gust that made the air itself wail. Wild mutt's sharp senses picked up the incoming strike. It kicked off hard with its hind legs, narrowly dodging the attack. Thud! The tentacle slammed into the ground, tearing open a spider web of cracks, proof of its terrifying power. Wild mutt let out a low snarl. Though blind, its sense of smell, hearing, and heat perception were pushed to the limit. It was perfectly aware of its surroundings, no less capable than any other alien hero. Its miss enraged the blob alien, which roared and launched a wild barrage of attacks. Roar! Wild Mutt's thunderous cry shook the ground beneath it. Its aura flared, and its feral instincts took over. No longer dodging, it charged forward head-on, colliding with the grotesque monsters in a brutal clash. An old woman nearby opened her mouth wide, revealing green fangs. She wrenched a street lamp from the pavement and hurled it at Wild Mutt with all her strength. The whistling wind screamed past its ears. Wild Mutt's muscles tightened. It swung its dagger-like claws toward the sound. Rib! The steel street lamp shattered like brittle tofu under its claws, breaking into countless fragments that crashed to the ground. With a roar, Wild Mutt pushed off with explosive force, launching like a cannonball and slamming into the old woman. She screamed, her face twisting grotesquely as her body morphed into a slime-covered monster. Wild Mutt raised a massive fist and brought it down mercilessly, pounding her head like a relentless storm. In seconds, her skull burst into a puddle of revolting green slime. The stone beneath them cracked open into a deep crater. Roar! 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 You're dead meat! Everyone, attack together! Take it down! More blob aliens charged in. Wild Mutt growled and leapt aside, retreating from the old woman's position. But her head reformed quickly, green slime gathering until her face was whole again. Even that brutal beating couldn't kill her. In the dark alley, countless blob aliens crowded in, cornering Wild Mutt in a dead end. They shrieked and lunged, intent on ripping the beast apart. Roar! Wild Mutt bellowed again, its roar like thunder as it charged into the swarm. Against overwhelming strength, numbers meant nothing. Dozens of blob aliens, their eyes glowing an eerie green, rushed like a crashing tide, swallowing Wild Mutt whole. Boom! At the moment of impact, Wild Mutt unleashed a devastating punch, sending several monsters flying. They smashed through a wall, bursting into pools of green slime. Like a tiger among sheep, Wild Mutt tore through them without restraint. None could withstand even a single blow. Under its claws and fists, they exploded into sprays of glowing slime. A dozen blob aliens roared in unison, exchanged a look, then leapt high into the air, diving down at once toward Wild Mutt. Sensing them instantly, Wild Mutt roared, kicked off the ground, and appeared in their midst. Under their stunned gazes, it swung its claws wildly, each strike leaving sharp after-images that seemed to tear the very air apart. Before the dozen or so blob aliens could react, they were torn apart into a sky-filling slurry, cascading down toward the ground, much of it splattering onto their own kind. This harrowing scene unfolded in the blink of an eye. Wild Mutt had barely touched down when its legs suddenly tightened. It whipped its head around. Thermal imaging revealed a hunched figure had seized it. It was a blob alien disguised as an old man. Wild Mutt tried to kick him off, but the old man was faster. His hands, like hard pincers, locked onto its legs and flung it violently, slamming it into a residential building. A wave of intense dizziness washed over it. Wild Mutt shook its head and struggled back to its feet. Before it could recover, all the blob aliens roared and swarmed forward, surrounding the creature completely. They unleashed a barrage of savage attacks, aiming to finish off this alien beast. Roar! Flooded with pain, Wild Mutt's rage surged. It lashed out with its claws, violently repelling all the blob aliens in front of it. Then, leaping repeatedly, it scrambled up a towering wall, creating distance from the ferocious creatures. Wild Mutt's mind raced. It had to find a way to kill these blob aliens, or it would be worn down to death. But scanning its surroundings, it detected no water sources. The fire hydrants had been uprooted, sealed shut with rebar and cement. Wait! Concrete, rebar. Wild Mutt flashed a human-like smile, its sharp fangs gleaming menacingly. From the wall corners, the blob aliens had already extended their monstrous claws. Dense and writhing, their fingers slowly reached out, clawing toward this direction. Forcing itself to calm down, Wild Mutt activated its heightened senses, meticulously scanning everything around it, as if merging with the very fabric of the world. In an instant, the roars, curses, and the scraping of claws against the walls vanished completely. Clatter! A surge of joy filled Wildmutt's heart. It clearly sensed a dense network of water pipes within the nearby walls, deeply embedded in the reinforced concrete, carrying a steady flow of clear water. Breaking through these walls would eliminate the blob aliens. Withdrawing its